Hello, friend. I'm the Midnight Echoes, and tonight I'm here to help you rest. So take a moment, like the video, subscribe if you'd like more tales to drift into darkness with. Now, where are you watching from, and what time is it there as your night unfolds? Settle in, let your body grow heavy. Let the soft rain surround you like a blanket. And listen, the mansion stood like a monument to forgotten time, a great stone beast crouched beneath the falling twilight, its windows dark, its edges lost to the early shadows. I stood at the gate, keys trembling in my hand, a cold breath of wind pressing against the back of my neck. It wasn't the air, it was something deeper, like the place itself was watching. It's just nerves, I whispered to myself. After all, how often does someone ask you to house sit a mansion that looks like it was carved out of a gothic fairy tale? But this wasn't fantasy. It was stone, wood, glass, and something else. The door groaned on its hinges, a long, reluctant creak that echoed into the yawning silence beyond. I stepped in. Hello? My voice sounded too small, swallowed up by the vast foyer. No answer, except tick, 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 an antique grandfather clock standing vigil in the corner. Still ticking after all these years. I closed the door behind me, the sound heavy as a seal locking shut. Get it together, Sarah. You're alone here, just like Mrs. Blackwood said you'd be. I climbed the grand staircase, its carpet plush beneath my feet, my suitcase whelming like a silent shadow behind me. The room I was to sleep in, it was bigger than my entire apartment. A 4-poster bed stood at the center, its dark wood carved with roses, its canopy thick with velvet. I half expected someone to be sleeping in it already. I unpacked quickly, just enough to settle my nerves. And then I began to explore. Each room was a frozen whisper of a different era, a library with books taller than me, spines bound in leather older than my grandparents. A music room, its piano quiet beneath a veil of dust, as though it had played one final, tragic note and never been touched again. A sunroom, where strange leafy plants stretched toward glass like they'd forgotten sunlight. There was beauty here, but behind it, something forgotten, a history that had stopped telling its story, but never stopped watching. As the night bled in from the windows, I retreated to the kitchen. The old decor gave way to modern appliances, shiny, blinking things that didn't belong. The fridge buzzed, the faucet dripped, and in between every sound was silence. I ate quietly, a bowl of pasta scraped with every forkful, the sound too loud, too sharp, like it didn't belong in that house. That night, I tried to sleep, but sleep did not come easy. The mansion creaked, it groaned, it shifted, as though remembering someone else, someone who used to walk those halls. Every unfamiliar noise pulled me from the edge of sleep. A thud here, a tap there, floorboards sighing under the weight of invisible steps. It was nothing. It had to be. Still, I lay stiff beneath the covers, eyes on the ornate molding that twisted above the bed like reaching fingers. Then I heard it, a soft rustle, not loud, Not close, but definite, deliberate. I sat up, held my breath. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. I told myself it was the wind, the trees outside, old pipes maybe, anything else. I tried to drift off again, but just as I closed my eyes, I heard it once more. A creak on the stairs, soft, slow, step by step. My heart pounded, each thud louder than the last. I told myself I was imagining it, but the footsteps didn't stop. They paused, right outside my door. Silence. I sat there, frozen in the dark, listening, not daring to move. Then, a knock. One single, solid knock. I didn't answer. I couldn't. When I finally found the courage to move, I crept from the bed and approached the door, hands shaking, pulse deafening. I pressed my ear to the wood. There was nothing, but when I slowly turned the knob and opened it, the hallway was empty, completely still, except the library door was open, and I was sure I had closed it. That's enough for now. Close your eyes. Let that rain continue to fall. There's more to come, more to feel, more to fear. When you're ready, just say the word, and part 2 will begin. Sleep, if you can, because some doors open themselves. Welcome back. It's still raining out there, still dark, still waiting, but you're safe here with me. Let the shadows lean close, and let's begin where we left off. The library door creaked on its hinges, wide open in a way I knew I hadn't left it. That room had been closed tight when I explored earlier. I was sure of it. I stood in the hallway barefoot, each heartbeat echoing in my ears like a drum. But the house? It was silent again. Too silent. Like it had caught me listening. I should have gone back to bed. That's what any sane person would do, right? But something in me, curiosity, or maybe something deeper, a need to prove I wasn't afraid, pulled me toward the open door. I stepped inside. The air was colder in the library, still pressed down, like a breath being held. Books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, their spines worn smooth by age. A ladder baked near the back wall, and by the fireplace, a single chair turned slightly toward the room. It was empty, but still warm, as if someone had just stood up from it. I walked slowly around the room, half expecting someone to speak. "Hello?" I whispered again. No response, only the sound of rain against the glass. Then I noticed, on the small table beside the chair, a teacup, full, steam curling softly above it, still hot. My stomach tightened. Someone had been here, very recently. I backed away, one careful step at a time, until I reached the doorframe. A creak behind me. I turned, but the room looked unchanged, silent, still, watching. I shut the library door gently, click, and I didn't open it again that night. Back in the bedroom, I locked the door, sat on the bed, listened. The mansion had fallen into one of those silences that feels unnatural, like it's not just empty, but waiting. I climbed under the covers, and finally, somehow, sleep came, but not peace. The dream started in the hallway. I was walking barefoot across the cold floorboards, moonlight slipping in through tall windows. I could hear music, soft, lilting piano notes drifting from somewhere downstairs. Melancholy. Familiar. I followed it, down the grand staircase, through the foyer, into the music room. There, at the piano bench, sat a woman. Her back was to me, dark hair pinned up, hands moving slowly over the keys. She wore a long nightgown, old-fashioned, white. I opened my mouth to speak, but she stopped playing. Her hands froze, and slowly, so slowly, she turned. Her face was pale, unmoving, eyes wide and glassy, mouth open like she had been screaming for a very long time, but there was no sound, just silence. And then she raised one hand and pointed directly at me. Her mouth moved. 3 words, silent but unmistakable. Don't stay here. I woke up gasping, heart pounding, sweat clinging to my skin like cold fingers. The rain was louder now, slamming the windows. Lightning flashed. For a split second, the room lit up like day, and in that flash, I saw it, a shape, at the foot of my bed, too tall, too still, gone in the next blink. I didn't sleep again that night. I lay there until dawn, eyes wide, blanket clutched tight, waiting for light to return like it was a rescue boat. When the sun finally bled through the curtains, I got up and left the room. The hallway was empty, no sign of anything unusual, until I passed the library door again. It was closed, like I had left it, but tucked beneath it was something that hadn't been there before. A photograph, old, sepia-toned, frayed at the edges. I picked it up. A group of people stood on the front steps of the mansion, 5 or 6 of them, dressed in early 1900s clothing. One woman stood out, the same woman from my dream. She was smiling, but something about her eyes, even in the photo, they looked directly at me. I turned it over. A note was scrawled in faded ink. Eleanor, winter 1904, before everything changed. My hands trembled. This wasn't coincidence, wasn't imagination. Something had happened here, something that never really left, and I was beginning to understand. This house didn't just have a past, it had a memory, and it wanted me to remember too. That's enough for now. Let your eyes close if they're not already. Let your breathing slow. You're safe here, for now. But remember, some memories don't fade, some houses don't forget, and in the next part, you'll understand why. Good night, sleep well, and beware the sound of footsteps in old houses. You're awake, or somewhere between. That's enough, because the house remembers, and now, so do you. Let's return. After finding the photograph, I couldn't shake Eleanor's face from my thoughts, her expression in that dream, and then, in the photo, it was more than a coincidence. I needed answers. The mansion had a history. I could feel it pulsing through the walls. So I decided to dig. There was a study near the east wing, lined with dust-covered books and ancient filing cabinets. I hadn't spent much time there before. It gave off a strange energy, like it didn't want to be disturbed. But curiosity had its claws in me now, and the truth, it felt urgent. I found a box beneath one of the cabinets, locked, but the wood was rotted at the edges. A little force, and it gave way with a reluctant groan. Inside were letters, newspaper clippings, photographs, some torn, others curled by age. One headline stopped me cold. Tragedy at Marrow House. Family disappears without a trace. dated December 1904. Weeks after Eleanor's photo was taken, the article was vague. Mentions of strange noises, guests fleeing the estate, and then silence, no bodies found, just rumors. Locals whispered about hauntings, about the land being cursed, the kind of stories passed around campfires, half laughed at, but never quite forgotten. I read every word, every name, every line, and one sentence near the bottom twisted in my stomach. It is said the lady of the house, Eleanor Wren, was last seen walking into the woods behind the estate, barefoot, wearing only a white gown, humming an unfamiliar tune. That was it. That same melody I'd heard in the dream. That same dress, same woman. This wasn't just a ghost story. I was living in it. The more I uncovered, the heavier the house began to feel. It creaked more often. The shadows moved with a kind of purpose, curling just outside the corners of my vision. I kept the photograph of Eleanor close, not sure if it protected me or if it tethered me deeper to whatever had taken root here. That night, the rain returned harder than ever, a steady roar against the windows. The wind howled through the old chimney, a sound like someone moaning in their sleep. It was almost unbearable, but I couldn't sleep, not with the sense that something had shifted. I lit a candle. The electricity in that part of the house had gone dead, as if the storm had taken it, or something else had. That's when I heard it. Not rain, not wind, a music box, soft, distant, its tinkling melody threading through the halls, delicate, childlike, coming from downstairs. I wrapped a blanket around myself and stepped into the hallway, the floorboards colder than before, as if the house itself had turned against me. The melody continued, leading me like a trail of breadcrumbs. I followed through the hallway, down the stairs, into the music room. There it sat, a small wooden music box on the piano bench, one I had never seen before. It was open. The figure inside spun slowly, a ballerina, arms lifted, eyes shut tight. But there was something wrong with her. The paint had peeled, one arm was broken, and as I got closer, I realized the tune she danced to was the same one Eleanor had played in my dream. I reached for the box, and the music stopped, abruptly, as if someone had slapped it shut, but I hadn't touched it yet. I stood frozen, hand hovering inches away. Then, behind me, a floorboard groaned. Not the house, not the wind. Someone was there. I turned slowly, expecting what? Eleanor? Something worse? The room was empty, but the chandelier above me began to sway, not gently, but violently, like something unseen had brushed past it, or worse, gone through it. I backed away. The music box clicked softly and began to play again, by itself. The ballerina spun, but now her face, it was no longer blank. Somehow, the features were sharper, more human, and her eyes were open. I ran. I didn't stop until I was back in my room, slamming the door shut behind me, my breath ragged and hot in my throat. The candle flickered, almost went out, and then, scratching at the door, slow, deliberate, too high to be an animal, too steady to be wind, like fingernails, or something worse. I didn't move, didn't speak, and after a few minutes, it stopped. I stayed awake until morning. When the sun finally rose, I opened the door. Nothing, no marks, no shadows, but at my feet, a single item had been left behind. A ribbon, faded pink, frayed at the edges. I had seen it before, in the photograph, worn in Eleanor's hair. I don't think she's trying to scare me. Not exactly. She's trying to warn me. Warn me about what? I'm getting closer to that answer. And maybe, just maybe, so are you. Sleep now. If you can, the rain will keep you company, but don't trust every dream. Some of them remember too much, some of them never ended. There's something strange that happens when you go too long without sleep. The world blurs, edges fade, and things that shouldn't be there start to appear. I'd spent the entire night listening to the rain, to the scratching, to the sound of Eleanor's music box echoing in my mind. When the sun rose, it didn't feel like safety. It felt like a trick. That morning, I took the ribbon Eleanor had left me and went back to the study. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. Maybe more answers. Maybe her. But what I found was something I had missed the day before. A journal tucked behind the false back of the cabinet. Old, worn leather binding, pages yellowed with time. The name etched into the first page, Eleanor Wren. It wasn't a diary, exactly. It read more like notes, observations. Her handwriting was careful, but hurried, as if written in fear. Page after page spoke of her growing dread, not of ghosts, not of people, but of the house. The mirrors whisper at night, she wrote. They reflect more than they should. Something watches me through them, not my reflection, something behind it. That line chilled me, because the night before, I'd noticed the same thing. In the hallway mirror, just for a second, I thought I saw someone behind me, but when I turned, there was no one. Now I wasn't so sure. Eleanor had drawn sketches too, symbols she claimed she'd found etched into the basement walls. A spiral inside a triangle, an eye without a pupil, a sun with too many rays. They were ritualistic, dark. She believed the house had been part of something older, something built not just to shelter, but to trap. And then, near the end of the journal, her writing changed, became erratic. It speaks to me now, she wrote, not in words, but in dreams, and the dreams are always the same. She described walking into the woods, wearing the white gown, humming the melody. She said she couldn't stop herself, that something was drawing her, calling her. I closed the journal, hands trembling, because that melody, it had been playing in my head for hours now, even when nothing else made a sound, and I had dreamed of the woods too, once, twice, now, more. I had to see them for myself. There's a path behind the estate, barely visible through the overgrown grass. Trees loom overhead, tall, twisted, their bark scarred with deep cuts and strange symbols. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. No birds, no wind. Not even the rain touched this place, like the forest was holding its breath. Then I found it, a clearing, perfectly circular, like the trees had been pushed back by force or fear. At its center, a stone well, cracked and moss-covered, surrounded by little offerings, broken dolls, rusted trinkets, teeth, human, animal, I couldn't tell, but all of them were arranged with care, with reverence. I should have turned back, but something inside me kept going. I walked toward the well, drawn like Eleanor had been, feet heavy, heartbeat loud. I looked over the edge. Nothing, just darkness. But then, I heard it. That same lullaby, soft, drifting up from the depths, as if someone below was singing to me. I stumbled back, tripping over one of the offerings, and that's when I saw it, etched into the stones around the base of the well, the same spiral triangle Eleanor had drawn in her journal, over and over, fresh, like someone had carved it recently, like someone was still here. I didn't run, not yet. I walked back to the house, forcing my legs to obey, afraid that if I ran, something would follow. Maybe it already was. That night, I locked every door, every window. The candle flickered again, always the same, and then the whispers returned, faint at first, muffled, like someone talking through a closed door, then louder, clearer, voices, many of them, layered, some crying, some laughing, some begging. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the feeling. They were trapped, all of them. I turned toward the mirror on the wall. Something inside me already knew what I would see. And there she was, Eleanor, not behind me, inside the mirror, staring, mouth open, but no sound, just that same pained expression, like she had been calling out for help for over a century, and no one ever heard her. Until now, she raised her hand, placed it on the inside of the glass, and God help me, I raised mine too. Our palms met, separated only by the cold barrier between us. And then, in the reflection, her lips moved. One word. Leave. I jerked back. The mirror cracked, not shattered, just one sharp line across the middle, running through her eyes. But when I looked again, she was gone. The rain outside had turned into a storm. Thunder rumbled, low and long. The power surged back, but only for a second, just enough for the hallway lights to flicker and show me what waited there. At the end of the corridor, a figure, still, tall, facing away from me, wearing white. I didn't need to see her face. I knew who it was, but this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her, shadows moved, dozens of them, flickering like candle flames. Some were broken, twisted, others crawled, and all of them were watching. The hallway light died, darkness returned, and in the silence that followed, the music box began to play again, but slower this time, like it was winding down. I haven't left the room since, not yet. Not while I still have pages left in Eleanor's journal. Not while I still hear her voice in the mirror. Not while the woods still sing. You're still with me, aren't you? Good, because I think you're part of this now, too. These stories don't just live here. They listen, they wait, and now they know your name. Sleep carefully tonight. Watch your mirrors. And never follow a melody you don't remember learning. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. After what I saw in the hallway, every shadow in this house felt alive. And they weren't hiding anymore. They were waiting. I stayed by the candlelight, Eleanor's journal clutched tight in my hands. Reading it again, looking for something, anything, that might explain what I'd seen. There was one page I'd missed before, folded into the back cover, almost like it didn't want to be found. A single sentence. If you hear your name whispered in the rain, do not answer. That should have made me feel safer. A rule, a line I could draw. But deep down, I already knew I'd broken it. The first time I stepped onto the porch of this house, the rain had whispered something, a sound too soft to be wind, too deliberate to be random. I thought it was nothing, but now, I wonder if it had said my name, if it had chosen me from the very beginning. I decided I couldn't stay in the house another night. I had to leave, even if just for a while. So I got in the car and drove into town. But the town, it didn't feel like a way out. It felt like a reflection. The streets were empty, shops closed, no cars, no voices, and yet everything looked normal, too normal, like a place that had been paused, like a memory looping. At the gas station, a man stood behind the counter. I asked if he knew anything about the Wren estate. The moment I said the name, his smile faded. He didn't speak, just stared at me with this hollow kind of silence that felt too heavy for such a small space. I thanked him and turned to leave, but as I stepped outside, he said something, soft, almost to himself. You shouldn't have followed the song. Back in the car, the rain began again, harder now, and in it, a voice, just beneath the rhythm of the drops, saying my name, over and over, calm, rhythmic, insistent. I drove faster, but no matter how far I went, I never seemed to leave the forest behind. Eventually, I turned back. I don't know if I had a choice or if I ever really left. The road was shorter on the way home, too short. I parked, and the moment I stepped out, the rain stopped. Not a drizzle, not a wind, just silence. Inside the house, everything had changed, not visually, but atmospherically, like the air was thicker, heavier, like the walls were holding a breath they didn't want to release. The mirror in the hallway had been covered with a white cloth, not by me, and on it, a single word written in what looked like charcoal, soon. The music box had moved. It now sat in the center of the parlor, on the floor, lid open, still, but I didn't dare touch it. Instead, I turned back to the journal. There was one last section, pages stuck together like they hadn't been opened in years. Eleanor's final entries, and they read like warnings, no longer notes, but confessions. I tried to leave, she wrote, but the house is not a place, it's a door. Once you open it, you let it know you, and once it knows you, it follows. She described feeling watched, even in town, even in dreams. Said the melody had burrowed into her bones, that she couldn't remember when it had started, only that it had never stopped. It sings through me now, not to me. And then the last line, written in jagged strokes. The forest is not outside. It grows inside the walls. That night, the dreams came again. I was in the woods, but this time I wasn't alone. Shapes moved between the trees, not human, not quite, some tall, some low to the ground. They watched but didn't approach until I heard the melody again. This time, not from the well, from me. I was humming without meaning to, and the shapes began to sway as if waiting. Then a voice, not mine, came from behind me, calm, female, soft. You're the key now. I turned and saw Eleanor, but not the girl from the mirror. This Eleanor was older, tired. Her eyes were hollow, but not lifeless. She pointed at my chest, and I looked down. A ribbon, the one she had given me. It had wrapped itself around me, not just physically, but deeper, tied to something unseen. I woke up gasping. The candle had burned out, and in the pitch black I heard them again. The whispers, the voices in the walls, but they were saying something new now. Not just crying or calling, they were chanting my name and something else, one word, over and over. Stay, 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 stay. The mirror cloth had fallen, and Eleanor's reflection was no longer alone. There were dozens behind her, faces twisted in terror, eyes hollow, all mouthing the same word. Stay. I think I understand now. This house isn't haunted in the way we think. It's a lure, a net, a vessel. It calls to people who are already broken, who are already hearing things. It offers answers, then swallows you whole. I haven't left since. I'll tell you, because I'm trapped, because I think I don't want to, not anymore. The melody doesn't sound scary now. It sounds familiar, like home. But if you're hearing this, if you've followed me this far, you need to ask yourself something. Has the rain been whispering your name too? Have the mirrors been a little too still lately? Because if they have, you're already part of this, and it's too late to leave. I stopped marking the days. Time doesn't move here the way it should. The clocks tick, but the hands don't turn. Candles burn, but never melt. It's like the house wants me in this moment, forever. And maybe that's not so bad. At least, that's what I told myself. Until I opened the cellar door. I didn't know why I opened it. I don't remember walking toward it. One moment I was sitting, reading. The next, my hand was on the knob, turning. The air was thick, wet, like stepping into lungs that hadn't breathed in decades. The stairs creaked with every step, not under my weight, but like they were warning someone below. The cellar was bigger than it should have been, much bigger. A stone corridor stretched far into the dark, lined with what looked like doors, but not rooms. They felt more like vaults, each sealed tight, except one. A crack of light spilled from the sixth door on the left, a flickering glow, like candlelight. I approached, slowly. Every instinct told me to turn back. But the melody, it was louder here, more layered, like something ancient was singing with me now. I pushed the door. It opened without a sound. Inside, a room of mirrors, tall, cracked, and leaning at odd angles, covering every wall, some broken, some still intact, and in every one I saw myself. But not quite. Some versions of me were older, thinner, eyes sunken, hair grayer. Others were not human anymore. Mouths stretched, eyes black, watching me even when I looked away. Then one of them moved, not a reflection, an echo. He stepped forward, out of the mirror. Same face, same scars. But something was wrong. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe, just smiled. You're almost ready, he said. I asked him, ready for what? He pointed at my chest, where the ribbon had once been tied. It was gone, but in its place, a mark, black, faint, spiraling out like roots. He said, once it finishes blooming, the house will know your shape, and it will wear you. I tried to step back, but he stepped with me, mirroring, like he was trying to replace me. The mirrors began to hum, not a melody, a vibration, low, growing louder until the glass shook, cracked, split. I ran, back through the corridor, up the stairs, slammed the door shut, and still I could hear it, the sound of dozens of feet shuffling behind the cellar door, not running, just waiting. Back upstairs, the house had changed again. The windows were gone, not boarded up, just gone, replaced with black stone like the walls had sealed the world out. Or maybe sealed me in. I lit every candle I could find, even ones Eleanor hadn't touched. The light flickered against the wood like it was breathing. It calmed me for a while until I saw the message on the wall, written in soot, right above the fireplace. The storm brings the others. That night, the rain returned harder than ever, sheets of it, slamming the roof, flooding the porch, and with it, footsteps, not around the house, inside, soft, bare, moving from room to room. They never reached me, but they stopped just outside my door and stayed there for hours. In the morning, the footsteps were gone, but something had been left behind. On the floor outside my door, an old cassette tape, no label, just the tape, coated in dust. I didn't remember seeing a player anywhere in the house, but when I went downstairs, there it was, an old stereo on the mantel, waiting. I pressed play. At first, silence, then static, and then a voice, Eleanor's. If you're hearing this, you've stayed too long. The melody doesn't choose the weak, it chooses the unfinished. People like us, broken by grief, haunted by silence, we echo too loudly. She talked about the house like it was alive, that it was old, older than any map, older than the land it stood on. She called it the inheritance, not a gift, a burden. The first to hear the song was a girl who disappeared into the well. She sang it into the soil, and the house grew from her sorrow. Every generation since, someone hears it, answers, becomes a room, a wall, a door. Soon, you won't remember where the house ends and you begin. The tape clicked off. I sat there in silence, staring at the stereo, until I noticed something strange. My hands were no longer trembling. My reflection in the glass door wasn't mimicking me anymore. It was still watching. I think that's when I knew. I wasn't in the story anymore. I was becoming it. Another whisper in the walls, another name for the rain to carry. I tried to leave once more, packed a bag, opened the front door, but the forest was gone, not like it had moved, like it had never existed. Beyond the porch was only black, not night, not shadow, just absence, like the edge of the world. I stepped back inside. The door closed on its own. The melody returned, not outside now, inside me, in my chest, my throat, my fingertips, and I began to hum along. If you've listened this far, if your fingers are trembling, if the air around you feels heavy, you may have heard it too, that small sound in the rain, between the thunder, a tune too familiar to forget, a voice too soft to ignore. If it's calling your name, don't answer, because once you do, you're no longer a visitor. You're part of the house. I stopped looking at mirrors. They move too much now, even when I don't, especially when I don't. They show me things I haven't done yet, things I might do, things the house wants me to do. There's one mirror I can't cover. It's built into the wall, in the hallway outside the old nursery. Tall, narrow, it reflects more than just the hallway. Sometimes it reflects places the hallway doesn't lead to. One night, I passed it, and it didn't show me. It showed a kitchen, not mine, older, dusty, lit by candles with blue flames. There was a man standing at the table, his back to me, bent over something. I stopped. The mirror shimmered, like water being disturbed. The man looked up, straight at me. His face was wrong, not deformed, just rearranged. Too many teeth, eyes that blinked out of sync. He said one word, soon. Then the mirror went black. The next morning, the nursery door was open. I never open it. I don't even look at it. But now, something had stepped out of that room. Small footprints led away from the doorway. Bare, wet, like they had stepped out of the rain. Except it hadn't rained that night. I followed them to the music room where the piano sat. It was playing itself again, not the lullaby this time. Something faster, jarring, like bones cracking in rhythm. The footprints circled the piano, then stopped right at the bench, and then the keys stopped playing. A single note rang out, then another, then a chord, being pressed, one key at a time. Like something was learning, practicing. I stepped forward, and the piano slammed shut. The bench scraped backward, as if someone stood from it, but no one was there. I should have run, but I was past the point of fleeing. You don't run from the air you breathe. You don't run from your own shadow. And by now, this house was both. I lit another candle, the last one in the box. It flickered, blue, same as the ones in the mirror, and then I remembered. Blue candles were for summoning. Eleanor said that once in a journal entry. She wrote, white to cleanse, black to bind, blue to beckon. And I just beckoned something. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The house was louder than usual, not creaking, breathing, not wind, whispers. And then the scratching started at the walls, inside them, like someone wagging their nails across the wooden beams, not frantically, rhythmically, like they were writing. I pressed my ear to the wall, heard it again, scritch, 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 then a word, spoken softly, right next to my ear, remember. The next morning, I found a new door. It hadn't been there before, in the library, behind a shelf that had shifted, a small wooden door, child-sized, painted with stars, and one name carved into it, Isabel. I never told you about Isabel, did I? I didn't remember her at first, but now pieces come back. A name in a photograph, a laugh in a hallway, a song only a child would hum. She lived here once, a long time ago. The journals, Eleanor's, mention her. A daughter, born during the worst storm the town had ever seen, died in the attic. No one says how, only that her room was sealed, that it had to be sealed. I opened the door. Inside, a crawl space lined with drawings, crude, done in chalk and soot, stick figures, eyes scratched out, a tall shape in every corner of every image, long limbs, no face, just a mouth, open too wide. I crawled inside. Each breath felt colder, like I was moving deeper underground, even though I knew I was still in the house. The tunnel ended at another door, this one metal, locked, but someone had written across it, in tiny, careful script, she's still singing. I don't remember crawling back, only waking up in my bed. The candle burned down to nothing, the blue flame gone, and on the wall above me, a drawing in chalk of me sleeping with something standing beside the bed, watching. I scrubbed it off, peeled the wallpaper, painted over the wood, but the drawing returns every night, a little more detailed, a little closer. I tried the front door again. It opened this time, but outside wasn't real. It was the house's memory of outside. The same trees, the same path, but still painted flat, like stepping into a dream that wasn't yours. I took one step off the porch, and the ground opened beneath me, not falling, sinking into darkness that hummed. I screamed and woke up in the music room at the piano, hands on the keys, playing the lullaby. I'm losing track of which events are dreams and which dreams belong to the house. Sometimes I feel like a narrator reading words I didn't write, like this very sentence was already here before I thought it. The rain hasn't stopped for days now. It taps in patterns, same rhythm every night, like a code, like a knock, as if someone is waiting outside the window, but not for me, for you. If you've made it this far, you're starting to feel it, aren't you? That strange echo in your bones, that small hum when everything goes quiet, the way reflections linger too long in dark glass. That's how it begins. But don't worry, there's more to come. And once you understand what the house is, you'll understand why it chose you, too. There's a door in the cellar that's always been locked. No knob, no hinges, just a smooth, cold surface, as if the wood itself refused entry. But last night, it was open, just slightly, enough for a thin stream of water to trickle out. Rainwater, maybe, but it smelled like lake water, still, and old. I should have left it alone. I didn't. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. It wasn't a room. It was a tunnel cut into stone, descending, lit by nothing. But I could still see. Everything was tinted blue, like being underwater. The walls were damp, covered in symbols, etched in spirals, and every few steps, a mirror framed in rusted metal, mismatched sizes, cracked but not shattered. Each one showed me things I hadn't lived yet. In one, I saw myself weeping, knees in water, the cellar door closed behind me. In another, I wasn't alone. There was a shadow, tall, featureless, but it leaned close, its mouth near my ear, saying something I couldn't hear. The third mirror was blank until I breathed near it. Then, my reflection blinked, even though I hadn't. The deeper I went, the colder it became, but not in a physical way. It was a lonely kind of cold, the kind that made my heart slow, my skin throb, my memory stutter. I don't remember reaching the bottom, only the door, another one. This time, iron, bolted shut with red wax seals, covered in names. Some I recognized, some were mine. There was a symbol at its center, a spiral inside an open eye surrounded by teeth. I reached out, and the metal hissed. It burned cold, but I kept my hand there, because I heard something on the other side. Not movement, breathing, heavy, measured, old, and a voice, thin, desperate, whispering just two words, "Let me." I ran, up through the tunnel, back into the cellar, the rain louder than ever. But when I reached the top step, the house had changed again. The rooms were older, dust in the air so thick it swirled when I moved, furniture covered in sheets, walls stained with mold, paintings gone, or worse, replaced. Now they all featured a single subject. The house, same angle, same time of day, but each one slightly different. Clouds in new shapes, windows open or shut, a face at the attic window in one, a smile in the door's grain in another. Something had followed me back. I could feel it, not behind me, inside me, like a new breath that didn't belong to my lungs, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I sat down, I don't know for how long, but at some point, the record player turned on by itself. A voice crackled through the static. You're almost ready. Then silence, and the record melted. Later that night, I heard a voice from the fireplace. It called out, "Come back to the beginning." I crawled inside. Ash covered my hands and knees. The chimney rose like a stone throat, tight and endless, but halfway up, there was a hatch, a wooden door, latched from the inside. I opened it, and I was in the attic, even though the fireplace is on the first floor. There, I found a chair, set in the middle of a circle of salt, pages scattered around it, drawings of me in this house, each one more recent than the last. The final one was me holding this very drawing, looking at myself. That's when I heard the music box again. But this time, it wasn't in the attic. It was outside, in the rain. I looked through the window, and there, on the lawn, was a child holding the box. She turned it once, and it began to play. She looked up at me, not smiling, not sad, just waiting, and the box kept playing, slower, lower, until the melody became whispers, not words, ideas, pushed into my thoughts like fingers pressing against my brain. I stepped back from the window. The reflection didn't. It stayed, watching me, then smiled. I've stopped counting the days. I don't know if this house is haunted. I think it's alive, and I think I'm part of it now. The rain hasn't stopped. The power flickers, but the lights never go fully out. Not anymore. There's always just enough light to see the hallway, and the hallway is always just long enough to hide something waiting at the end. I heard you thinking something just now, that this is just a story, just fiction. But if you're still listening, if you made it to this part, then you know. The rhythm of the rain has matched your breath more than once. The creak you heard earlier wasn't in the audio, it was in your room. And the silence between these words, that was the house listening back. So ask yourself, when the dreams start repeating, when the face in your mirror lingers just a half second longer than you do, when you start hearing things through your walls at night, was this just a scary video, or did something follow the story home? Because that knocking, it's not part of the rain. They say a place can remember, but this house, it never forgets. Not time, not pain, not you. The dreams have changed. They don't fade like normal ones. They linger. They watch. Sometimes I wake up already inside them. I open my eyes and I'm in the hallway again. That hallway, long, windowless, carpet soaked from the inside out. It pulses beneath my feet, a heartbeat in the floorboards. I followed it once, barefoot. The walls grew narrower. The farther I went, the light dimmed into a kind of velvet dusk. the kind that hides more than darkness ever could. At the end was a door, simple, wood, old, but familiar. I'd seen it before, in a dream I didn't remember having, until the moment I touched the handle. Inside, a nursery, gray light bleeding through torn curtains, dust hanging in the air like old breath. Everything was untouched, except the mobile above the crib. It spun slowly, by itself, even though the air was still. Each figure hanging from it was wrong. A tooth, a rusted nail, a severed finger, child-sized, and one thing that wasn't hanging at all. A key, floating mid-air, spinning on its own axis. I reached for it, and the moment I touched it, I remembered everything. The house isn't a building, it's a binding, a container, a seal, and someone, something, tried to open it a long, long time ago. They didn't succeed, but they left the door open just a crack, and things leaked out. The house was built around the crack, brick by brick, to keep it in, to confuse it, to make it forget what it was. But it hasn't forgotten. It remembers in dreams, in static, in reflections. And now, because you heard this story, it remembers you. Here's what they don't tell you about haunted houses. They don't just want to scare you. They want to become you, one piece at a time. Every time I sleep, I lose something. A childhood memory, a name I used to know, the feel of sunlight on my face. They disappear quietly, without pain, like keys slipped off a ring. In their place, I gain something else. Knowledge I never wanted, visions of things buried beneath this house, whispers of names that were erased for a reason, and a constant, gnawing certainty that I am not alone in here, even when no one else is home. The rain is louder now. It doesn't fall. It scratches, like claws on the windows, on the roof, on the inside of my skull. Sometimes I think it's trying to peel the house open, layer by layer, like bark from a tree, looking for that crack, that original wound. I don't know how long I've been here. Clocks don't work anymore. They tick backward, or stop entirely, or show times that don't exist, like 1366, or zeros all, with a heartbeat underneath it. I don't sleep, not really, but I still dream. And lately, the dreams come with rules. Rule number 1. Do not look at your reflection in the dream. It isn't you, and if it sees you notice it, it will follow you home. Rule number 2. If you hear the doorbell, do not answer it. You didn't invite anyone, and what's waiting outside doesn't need an invitation. Rule number 3. If you find yourself in a room with no corners, sit down, close your eyes, and hum the song you heard in the cradle. You'll remember it when you need to. I broke a rule once, the third one. I opened my eyes, and I saw myself, but older, twisted, smiling, skin like rain-drenched paper, and it whispered, "I'm so proud of who you become." Then it opened its mouth, and spiders poured out. I've sealed the doors now, but not with locks, with memory. I wrote down every moment I could still recall. Family, friends, laughter, sunlight, wind. I scattered the pages throughout the house, and every morning I wake up, there's one fewer page. Soon I won't remember my name, but maybe that's how the house takes you. Gently, quietly, until you're part of the wallpaper, until your shadow doesn't wait for you to move. until someone else moves in and hears your footsteps overhead, but no one's upstairs. I'm writing this because maybe, just maybe, if I say it out loud, if I get it outside of myself, I'll be able to keep one truth safe. I wasn't always part of this place. I had a life before the rain, and so did you, so the next time it rains, and you feel just a little too tired to move, when your reflection lingers, when your home feels slightly off, even though nothing's changed, ask yourself, do I remember the way out? Because the house, it's listening, and if it hears doubt, it opens the door. There's a rhythm to it now. The sounds, the sighs, the moans of wood in places I've never stepped. The echo of footsteps in rooms that don't exist anymore. Sometimes I hear them stop right outside my door. They never knock. They don't have to. They already know the shape of the inside of my skull. I used to think I was alone in here, but that was before I found the stairwell, not the one that leads up, the one that goes beneath, behind the furnace, past the shelves, behind the part of the wall that's never warm no matter how high I turn the heat. It was hidden beneath the floorboards, 6 steps, rotten, warped, each one groaning with a different voice, voices I recognized. At the bottom, a door, no handle, no hinges, just wood that breathes, and it was breathing, in, out, slow and deep, like something sleeping, or pretending to sleep. I pressed my hand to it, cold, but wet, like something on the other side was weeping against it. I whispered, "Who's there?" It answered in my voice, "You are." I ran, back up the stairs, through the crawl space, into the kitchen, but the house didn't let me leave. Every hallway curved back on itself. Every door opened into the same room, over and over and over. Sometimes the room would change slightly. A photo frame now cracked, a light bulb flickering in Morse code, a voice whispering something just below hearing, but always the same 4 walls, like it was giving me time to accept what I am. I don't eat anymore, not food. The hunger is different now. It's not in my stomach. It's in the walls, in the air. It feeds off fear, but not in the way you'd think. It likes anticipation, dread, stretched thin like thread over flame. It likes the moment right before you scream. I've started finding things. Old journals, notes tucked inside books I've never read. Scraps of newspaper dated 1912. A headline: "Family vanishes inside newly built house, no bodies found." There's a photo with it. The house looks the same, exactly the same. Even the same peeling paint on the porch. But the sky in the photo is wrong. Too dark, too low, like the clouds were sagging under the weight of something they couldn't name. In the margin of the paper, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "We built it on the wrong land. It woke up hungry, and it learned our names." There's history here, layered, cracked, painted over but never erased. And the deeper I go, the more I realize the house wasn't built to keep something in. It was built to trap people like me. People who ask questions. People who notice patterns. People who hear the rain, even when it's not raining. I found a mirror in the attic. Not dusty, clean, polished, waiting. When I looked into it, I saw the house behind me, but not as it is now, as it used to be, bright, new, hopeful, children laughing, a birthday cake, streamers, a dog barking, and then everything froze. The children turned to face the mirror, but their eyes were completely black, and their mouths moved without sound, except one word made it through, clear, sharp, final, stay. I don't sleep anymore. I don't think I can. Time isn't real here. It drips like water through cracks in your memory. I find myself in places I don't remember walking to. Sometimes I open a door and it's night, but I just had breakfast. Other times it's raining inside the living room and no one seems to notice, especially not me. I write this because it's the only thing that makes sense. Writing pins the world down, forces it to obey a line, a shape, a story. But even now, the ink moves on its own. It slithers when I'm not looking, spelling things I didn't write, like my name, crossed out, over and over, and another one beneath it, one I don't recognize, but it knows me. The rain returned last night, louder than before. It didn't fall, it spoke. Each drop on the roof carried a syllable, and together they whispered, "You are part of the house now. The house remembers, the house forgives, the house replaces." And I think I understand now. The house doesn't haunt the people inside it. The people inside it haunt the house. We become its echoes, its creaks, its cold spots, its sighs through the vents. We become the stories strangers tell when they drive by too slowly and wonder why the curtains move, even though no one lives here anymore. I tried to leave, really. I opened the front door this morning, and what I saw was not my street. It was just white, not snow, not fog, just blank, like the house had been lifted out of the world, or the world had been erased around it. I think the house is writing now, through me. Each night, more words show up on the walls, under the wallpaper, behind the mirror, inside the bathroom tiles. A story told backward, a story that ends at the beginning, a story called The Last Person Who Tried to Leave. I haven't seen my own reflection in days, but I see it moving without me, in the corner of my eye, behind me in the glass. It's watching, and it's smiling, like it knows something I don't, like it's ready. If you're hearing this, if you've made it this far, then you're already inside the story too. And stories like this, they never let you go until the final word is spoken. But the house doesn't end. It just waits for the next person to step through the door and forget they were ever someone else. It happened at exactly 3:13 a.m. I know, because all the clocks in the house, every one of them, even the broken ones, clicked at once, just one click, but it echoed through every room, like the heartbeat of something mechanical or something pretending to be. I was lying in bed. I hadn't been sleeping. No one really sleeps here. You rest your body, you close your eyes, but your mind keeps walking through halls that don't belong to it. And that night, my mind went somewhere else, somewhere beneath. It wasn't a dream. It was too heavy for that. I was standing in the same stairwell, the one behind the wall, but now the door at the bottom was open, and inside, only darkness, but not empty. No, this darkness moved. It crawled like it was made of 1,000 fingers dragging themselves forward, and from deep within, I heard something say, "You're wearing my skin." I woke up choking. The air in the room was wet, thick. My sheets were soaked in water, but the ceiling didn't leak. The rain hadn't even started yet. I tried to speak, but the moment I did, my voice came out wrong. Too deep, too slow, and not entirely me. That was the first time the mirror blinked. Not me. It blinked. Once, like an eye had just opened behind the glass, and in its reflection, I didn't see the bedroom. I saw the basement, the open door, the breathing dark, and someone stepping out of it, dragging my shadow behind them like a second skin. I sealed the crawl space the next morning, nailed boards over the wall, piled furniture in front of it, burned sage, whispered prayers I didn't believe. None of it helped, because the house doesn't contain evil. The house remembers evil, and it replays it like a favorite scene, over and over and over. Each room started shifting, barely at first. A chair turned slightly, a photo now hanging upside down, the sound of wet footsteps in the hallway, but no footprints, only puddles, and sometimes not even that, just the scent, like wet earth, like mold, like something buried too soon. The storm finally came that night, not outside, inside. Rain fell from the ceiling, black water, thick, oily, staining the floor with symbols I couldn't read, and in the center of it all, a pool formed, perfectly round, reflective like a mirror, but not mine. This one looked back, and it smiled. I've been keeping a journal every day, trying to hold on to some sense of who I am, but the pages keep rewriting themselves. I'll come back to read what I wrote and find things like, don't trust the mirror, your voice is not your own, let it in. And worst of all, this isn't the first time you've been here. The more I read, the more I realize I'm not the first me to live in this house. There were others, different names, different faces, but always the same fear, always the same ending. One of the older journal pages had this scrawled in red ink: the house needs a heart, one that beats in sync with its hunger, one that won't resist. And now, every time I pass by a mirror, any mirror, I see someone inside it. Not me, someone close, like the idea of me, sharpened, distorted, smiling, always smiling. It doesn't want to kill me. That would be too easy. No, it wants me to become a part of it, to let go, to dissolve, to merge. It wants to wear me like a memory, like wallpaper, like the sound of floorboards when no one is walking. Last night, I saw her again, the girl. She stands at the top of the stairs sometimes, wearing a white dress soaked to the knees, hair covering her face. She never speaks, but when she lifts her head, her mouth moves like she's screaming, yet there's no sound, just rain where her voice should be. I followed her this time, down the hall, into the nursery. Yes, nursery, a room I'd never seen before. It shouldn't even exist in this house. But there it was, rocking chair, crib, mobile spinning slowly, even though there was no breeze, and on the walls, names, hundreds of them, scratched in with fingernails, all in a spiral, ending at the center with mine. I ran, back through the halls, but they changed while I was inside that room, longer, twisting, and the shadows followed. Some of them walked, some crawled, and one of them whispered, "The house doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to keep you forever." The rain has started falling in my dreams now, but it falls up, back into the clouds, reversing time, undoing me. I woke up with dirt in my mouth, nails filled with soil, like I'd been digging in my sleep, or maybe trying to claw my way out. There's something coming. I can feel it pressing at the edge of this reality, behind the mirrors, beneath the stairs, inside the dripping walls, waiting for the right moment to cross over. And when it does, there will be no escape, because once the house chooses you, you are no longer a visitor. You are no longer alive. You are just another story, told to the sound of rain. I found the mirror again. The same one I shattered 3 nights ago. Same crack, same blood on the edge, same reflection, but not mine, not anymore. At first, it looked like me, same tired eyes, same face held together by the weight of sleeplessness. But when I blinked, it didn't. When I turned my head, it smiled. It studied me like it was learning, trying me on like a costume, wearing my shape until it fit just right. That was yesterday. Now, it moves when I move, speaks when I speak, but sometimes it lags, half a second behind, and when it does, the smile widens, like it's proud of itself, like it knows something I don't. There's a door in the attic now, one that wasn't there before. It's not made of wood, it's made of mirror, thin as breath, tall as memory, and cold, so cold it hums when you touch it. Behind it, I can hear my voice, begging. Last night, I heard someone climbing the stairs. Heavy steps, too heavy, like wet hooves on rotting wood. I stayed in bed, covers up to my chin, pretending I was somewhere else, anywhere else. Then I heard it stop, right outside my door, and whisper, "You've been chosen." That was when the knocking started. Soft at first, then faster, harder, frantic, like something locked inside the walls wanted out. But I didn't open it. I couldn't, because part of me knew, once it comes in, something else has to leave. I checked the journal again. It's still running itself. This morning's page read, "The rain feeds it, your fear waters it, and your name is the seed." I didn't understand until I saw the garden. Yes, a garden buried beneath the house, roots made of hair, petals made of skin, and at the center, a tree, dead, but somehow still growing. From its bark hung dozens of wind chimes, made of teeth. They jingled softly in the dark, to the rhythm of my heartbeat. That was where I saw the reflection again, not in a mirror this time, in the water pooled at the tree's base. It looked tired, older, and when it opened its mouth, it said, "I'm still you, but you're no longer me." Something is changing inside the house. Rooms rearrange overnight. Doors lead to staircases that loop forever. I opened a closet this morning and found my old childhood bedroom, exactly as it was when I was 7, right down to the stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. But there was something wrong, something I didn't notice until the door closed behind me. There were 2 beds, and in the other one, someone was sleeping. I didn't stay long enough to see their face. I couldn't, because I already knew whose it would be, mine. But not now, soon. I keep hearing something behind the walls. It doesn't knock anymore. It breathes. Sometimes it sobs. Sometimes it laughs. But most of the time, it just waits, listening, waiting for me to finally speak the name it gave me, because I've seen it now. The name, etched behind the mirror in reverse, so you can only read it when you look away. I can't say it aloud, because to say it is to accept it. And if I do, I disappear. Tonight, I went back to the attic, back to the mirrored door. I don't know what pulled me there. Curiosity, desperation, something worse. It was cracked open, and behind it, my reflection stood there, waiting, but it wasn't trapped. It wasn't mimicking me anymore. It was reaching, one hand through the glass, then another, its mouth opened wide, wider than a human's should, a perfect oval of absence, and it said, "Let me in. You've worn the skin long enough." I slammed the door shut. It didn't fight, didn't scream, just whispered, "You can't hide behind your name forever." And then it laughed, a child's laugh, high and hollow. The rain hasn't stopped since, not outside, inside, in the pipes, the sinks, the floorboards. Even my pillow is damp, and every droplet carries whispers, some in my voice, others in voices I don't recognize, yet somehow remember. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. The clocks all stopped again, back at 3:13 a.m., full circle, a loop, a trap. I can't remember my own name, not fully, only the one the house gave me, only the one the mirror wears now, and each time I try to sleep, I hear it echoing in the walls, "Welcome home." There's a hallway in this house I've never seen before. It appeared last night, behind the bookshelf, right after the rain began to fall upward. Yes, upward, like time reversing, like gravity giving up. Books fluttered to the ceiling, like frightened birds, and when they landed, the shelf cracked in half. Behind it, a narrow hallway, longer than the house should allow. It smells like rust and wet flowers, and something older, something buried. I stepped inside. The walls were wallpapered with photographs, old, curled at the edges. Every few feet, another frame, faces frozen mid-laughter, families, children, strangers, until I found one photo with my face, but not my life. I was smiling, yes, but with people I didn't recognize, and someone had scratched out their faces. Only mine remained. Farther in, I found a light bulb swinging from a cord. It blinked in a strange rhythm, 3 long flickers, 2 short, 3 long again. Morse code? I checked the journal. It had a page titled, "Do not follow the light." Underneath, in red ink, "The house lures with memory, but memory is a lie you agreed to." I turned off the bulb. The hallway kept glowing. From beneath the floorboards, I knelt, pressed my ear down. Voices, soft, layered, as if dozens of people were whispering in different tongues at once. Some cried, some pleaded, and one voice, clear as thunder, said, "We died waiting for you." That's when the hallway stretched. The walls breathed, expanding like lungs. My footsteps no longer echoed behind me, but ahead of me, like someone was mimicking me, just out of sight. At the end of the hall was a door, old, pale green, peeling paint, and carved into it, not with a knife, but with fingernails. "This room remembers you." I opened it. Inside was a living room, one I haven't seen in decades. My grandmother's. Everything was exact. The candy dish, the doilies, the ticking clock that always ran 5 minutes fast, even the smell of jasmine and firewood. I saw her rocking gently, staring at the fireplace, except the fire was out, and her eyes were closed. She wasn't breathing, yet I heard her whisper, "You never said goodbye." I stepped closer. The floor creaked beneath me, louder than it should have. When I looked down, I was standing on photographs, dozens of them, all of me, different ages, different places. Some I don't remember ever living. In one, I was missing my eyes. In another, my mouth was stitched shut. She opened her eyes, but they weren't hers. They were mine, my current eyes, staring back at me from her face. Then she smiled and said, "If you won't wear your memories, I will." The room shook. Books flew from shelves. The windows turned black. I tried to run, but the door had vanished, replaced with a wall of mirror glass, not reflective, just watching. And behind it, I saw everyone I've ever forgotten. They were screaming, but they had no mouths. Then the record player started, a vinyl I'd never seen before, label scratched out, only a single word etched into its side: repeat. The song, my own voice, distorted and slowed down, repeating one line over and over. "You promised you'd come back." I clawed at the walls. I begged the mirror to crack. Instead, it opened, and out stepped the girl from the photo, the one whose face was scratched out. Except now, she had my face. She held my hand and said, "It's your turn to disappear." I woke up on the ceiling, not in bed, just clinging to plaster like a spider, my nails sunk into the paint. Beneath me, my reflection stood where I should be, yawning, stretching, adjusting, like someone trying on a coat made of skin. The journal had flipped pages again. Today's entry read, "The hallway is memory. Memory is trap. Trap is choice." And below that, a final warning: do not trust the familiar. Now, every time I blink, I'm somewhere else in the house. Sometimes in the basement, sometimes in that endless hallway. Once, inside the kitchen cupboard, watching myself eat dinner. He didn't see me, but when he drank the water, he gagged, then whispered, "We taste the past here." It's getting harder to tell when I'm dreaming, or if I ever actually sleep. I watch myself sleep now, from across the room. And when I do, my sleeping self smiles, like he knows I'm stuck here, like he's waiting for me to give up and fade. Outside, the rain isn't falling anymore. It's climbing, up the walls, across the windows, dripping upward into the attic. I followed it. I shouldn't have, because up there, it isn't rain at all. It's tears. They drip from the ceiling, thousands of them. Each one contains a face, a memory, a warning. They fall in slow motion, hovering like ghosts. And in one of them, I saw my mother. She was crying, but not water. She cried names, and one of them was mine, but not the name I was born with, the one the house gave me, the one I'm starting to answer to. I tried to leave, packed my bag, didn't look back, didn't even turn off the lights, but the moment I stepped through the front door, I was back inside. Only now, the house was different. Everything reversed. The kitchen was where the bedroom used to be. Stairs curled downward from the ceiling. The mirrors were now windows. And outside them, I saw me, walking, talking, laughing, living a life I'd never lived. The journal had changed too. New handwriting, sharper, slanted, a single sentence on the page. You left the body, but the memories stayed. and below it, a crude drawing, a stick figure with two heads, one smiling, one staring. The rain came back, but it wasn't falling. It was flowing inward, through the walls, up the stairs, soaking everything. Except me. I stayed dry, which is how I knew something was wrong. Because this rain, it wasn't weather. It was memory-made liquid. I stepped into the bathroom to clear my head. The mirror was fogged, even though there was no heat. When I wiped it clean, I didn't see myself. I saw a different version of me. Same face, but older. Eyes sunken, like sleep hadn't come in years. He held up a sign, words scribbled in shaky handwriting. I stayed too long. Then the mirror cracked, and so did the silence. Voices poured in through the vents, childlike, singing, not a melody, but a countdown. 10, 9, 8. I searched the house in a panic. No clocks, no phones, even the digital oven timer was blank, but the ticking was everywhere, and getting faster. The hallway reappeared, this time without the bookshelf to hide it. It opened like a mouth, hungry, waiting. I didn't want to go back in, but I heard my dog's bark. She's been dead 3 years, and yet there she was, sitting at the end of the hallway, tail wagging, tongue out, smiling. I ran to her without thinking. Halfway down the corridor, the bark changed. It wasn't hers anymore. It became my voice, praying for help. And the dog, now a shape made of shadow and bone. Its eyes blinked sideways. Its fur dripped like ink, and it whispered, "You remembered wrong." That's when the house shuffled again, like a deck of memories being cut and rearranged. Suddenly, I was sitting at a dinner table, family all around me, laughing, talking, chewing food that looked like old photographs. I tried to speak, but my mouth was full of film. I spat it out, black and white negatives, each one with a face, all mine, all wrong. In some, I had no mouth. In others, too many. One had me screaming, and no one at the table reacted. They just kept chewing. A knife clattered to the floor. I bent to pick it up, but the floor didn't end. It stretched downward like a tunnel. The boards bent like liquid. When I looked up, the table was gone, replaced by rows of doors, each one labeled with a year. Some years I hadn't lived yet. Others I thought I had. But something was off. One read, 2003, the year you died. I didn't remember dying, but the door opened anyway. Inside was my old bedroom, posters on the wall, the nightlight I hadn't seen since I was 6, my old stuffed bear, and in the bed, a version of me, sleeping peacefully, until he opened his eyes and said, "Don't wake me up. If I remember, you disappear." Then he closed his eyes, and the walls began to bleed. I ran, blindly, through door after door, each one a false memory. One showed me graduating college I never attended. Another, me getting married to someone I've never met. In one, I had no face, just smooth skin, and a voice behind me whispered, "Too many versions, choose one." I begged for escape, begged the house to stop, and it did, sort of. Everything froze, time, sound, light, even the rain stopped midair, and from the silence came a final echo. You aren't haunted, you're splintered, and the house is just your pieces, trying to find where they fit. Then the journal appeared in my hand again, a new page, drawn in circles, loops, spirals, labyrinths, and at the center, a small door. Beneath it, the final words of the chapter, When memory is maze, don't follow the thread, be the thread. I don't know how many versions of me are left in this house. I hear them crying sometimes, or laughing, or worse, knocking from inside the walls, like they want back out, or want me to come back in, and I don't know anymore if I ever really left, because this rain, it's still falling, but only inside. The house wasn't always like this. At least, that's what I tell myself. There must have been a beginning. Some first moment when wood met nail, when walls went up, and a door closed for the first time. But when I searched property records, blueprints, even satellite photos, it's not there. No address, no coordinates, no proof it ever existed. Only one note scrawled at the bottom of a blank land deed. Some structures build themselves. I wanted answers, so I returned. Again. Rain falling, as always, but softer now, like the house was trying to lull me in. This time, I brought chalk. I marked every wall I passed, every turn I took, but the marks would vanish behind me, not rubbed off, eaten, absorbed like the house was learning me, digesting me. In what used to be the living room, I found a new door, thin, old, warped, no knob, only a single word burned into the wood, origin. I pushed it open. Behind it, a staircase spiraling downward into blackness. At first, I thought it was a basement. Then I saw the walls. They weren't made of stone. They were made of pages, hundreds, thousands, all torn from diaries. I read them as I passed. He forgot to pick me up again. I lied and said I was fine. I think something's watching me when I sleep. Whispers echoed as I moved, voices not reading aloud, but remembering. Each one sounded like someone I'd met only once, but never forgot, and one sounded like me. At the bottom of the staircase was a room, a small wooden chair, a single light bulb swaying overhead, a table with one object, a music box. When I opened it, a familiar tune played, a lullaby, one my grandmother used to hum, though I hadn't heard it in decades. Tears welled up before I knew why, but the box kept playing, over and over, even after I closed it, until the music changed, slowed, distorted, and became a voice, my grandmother's voice. You left me here. I turned back, but the stairs were gone. The pages had vanished, replaced by mirrors, hundreds of them, each one showing me at a different age, different hair, different smiles, different scars. I stepped closer to one that showed me as a teenager, headphones on, eyes empty, and I heard him say, "You stopped dreaming about me." Then he shattered. The mirror fell into dust, and where it broke, a tunnel opened, long, narrow, breathing. Yes, the tunnel was breathing, the air in and out, as if the house had lungs. I walked into it, because what else could I do? Behind me, the tunnel sealed. Ahead, a new room, walls made of static, like television screens tuned to a channel that doesn't exist. And in the center, a woman, sitting, rocking. She had no face, just a smear of light and shadow. But when she spoke, I recognized the voice. You dream in broken things, so that's what I made for you. She reached forward, pressed something into my hand, a Polaroid photo. In it, me, standing in front of a house that was burning and smiling. She said, "This is the version of you who started the fire." I dropped the photo, but it didn't fall. It floated upward, caught in the static like it was trying to escape. I turned to run, but found myself back in my childhood bedroom. Except, not quite. The furniture was right. The carpet, wrong color. The smell, rot. And every drawer I opened held one thing. Teeth, hundreds of them. Baby teeth, filed teeth, cracked and polished and sharpened, each one labeled with a name, my name, over and over and over, until the last drawer held only one word, remember. That's when I heard the door open, slow, deliberate. Footsteps creaked across the hallway, closer, closer. I hid in the closet, held my breath, but I could still hear it. Not footsteps anymore, typing, keys clacking, a keyboard somewhere in the walls, and a printer began to hum. A single page slid under the closet door. On it, just 4 lines. You didn't build the house, you built the story, one forgotten nightmare at a time, and now you live in it. The closet walls pulled back. No longer a room, but a library, and not just any library, my library. Every memory I thought I'd forgotten, every lie I told myself, every moment I rewrote to survive, each bound in books with blank spines. And one book still being written, a pen hovering midair, scribbling without hands. On the cover, the house that you remembered wrong. I reached out to touch the pen, and it stabbed downward, straight through the page, through the wood, and into my shadow. Pain bloomed in my chest, not physical, but emotional, like grief sharpened to a blade. And I heard the house laugh, not loud, but subtle, the creak of wood, the groan of a pipe, the sigh of memory. It whispered, now you know, I don't trap the living. I trap the lies they tell themselves. When I woke up, I was outside again, clothes soaked, shoes gone, hands ink-stained, but the chalk was still in my pocket, and on my arm, written in what looked like charcoal, don't come back, the house is full. But every time I sleep, I dream of doors and staircases and music boxes, and I hear my own voice whisper, you never really left. Because some houses aren't made from wood or stone, they're built from you, one broken memory at a time. And the rain, it still falls, but only where I walk. The next time I saw the house, I didn't walk to it. It found me. I was in a diner, sipping cold coffee, listening to the sound of rain drumming gently on the windows. I glanced up, and through the steam-fogged glass, I saw it, across the street, exactly the same, except there was no street on the other side, just the front door, waiting like it always had. I blinked and it was gone, but the waitress noticed. You okay? She asked. I told her I saw a house, a familiar one. She went pale, lowered her voice. Was the window in the attic blinking? I didn't answer, because, yes, it had blinked, not flickered, blink, like an eye. She slid a receipt across the table. On the back, she scribbled, they tried to burn it once. She wouldn't explain more, but as I left, she whispered, if you hear your own voice coming from upstairs, don't follow it. That's not you. That's the version of you the house prefers. I didn't sleep that night. The rain didn't stop. And at 3:33 a.m., my phone buzzed. No number, just a single message. Room 6 is ready. I didn't recognize the sender. didn't even have cell service, and yet I found myself walking out the door, down the road, into the mist, until the house rose up from the dark again, except this time it was breathing. Walls swelled in and out, windows fogged and cleared like lungs, and the door already open, as if it knew I'd be coming back. I stepped inside. The air was thick, not dusty, but wet, like memory that had been forgotten and left in a cellar. Room 6 was waiting. A brass key lay on the floor, just in front of a door that hadn't been there before. I turned the key in the lock, and the room swallowed me whole. Inside, the wallpaper moved, not peeled, moved, like something crawling behind it. The bed was neatly made. A photograph sat on the pillow. I picked it up. It was me, but not now, younger and smiling, something I hadn't done in years. I flipped it over, in delicate script, the last time you were real. The closet door creaked open on its own. Inside, a mirror, but the reflection was wrong, not flipped, rewritten. It showed me doing things I never did, hugging people I'd lost, saying words I never said, holding someone's hand and whispering, "You don't have to be better, just quieter." Suddenly the lights flickered, and a figure appeared in the mirror behind me. Same height, same shape, but the smile, it was wide, too wide, and the eyes were empty. I turned around, nothing there, but in the mirror, he stayed. He stepped closer, I stepped back, but the floor was gone, and I fell. When I landed, it was dark. The room pulsed with low, guttural sounds, the creak of beams, the moan of things forgotten. The walls here were made of photographs, all black and white, all of me, at different times, but in each one, something was wrong. My eyes were missing, or my hands were replaced with static, or someone stood just behind me, blurred, watching, always watching. I ran. Doors wouldn't open, windows led to more rooms, staircases twisted upward into ceilings. Then I heard it, a soft, rhythmic knock, 3 times, followed by a voice. "Don't open the door yet. He's still in your skin." I turned. One door glowed slightly. A sign hung from the knob. Eviction. I didn't understand until I felt it. Inside me, something shifting, not physically, emotionally, like a memory trying to replace me. I gripped the door frame, pulling myself back. Whispers scratched at my ears. "Just let go. You'll be happier this way." I screamed, and the house paused. Everything froze. The rain outside halted midair, and from behind me, a child's voice said, "You yelled this time. That means you're still you." I turned. A little girl, clutching a teddy bear, eyes wide, haunted, she said. "They tried to burn the house, but the fire didn't leave. It just moved inside the people." She handed me a match, said, "This is for later, when you're ready to forget, or ready to remember." And she vanished, just like that. The house creaked, and all the doors opened at once. Every room, every hallway, every ending, and from each one, versions of me began to walk out. Some crying, some angry, some whispering apologies, some humming lullabies I didn't recognize. But one looked me in the eye and smiled and said, "You can leave, but the story stays." I ran, through door after door, through memories I didn't know I'd buried, through truths I never wanted to face, until I burst out into the rain again, gasping, alive, shaking, and in my hand, the matchstick still burned, but I never struck it because I knew the house wasn't destroyed by fire, it was built by it. And the match, that was for me, because some houses don't trap you with walls. They trap you with mirrors and songs and rooms that know your name. And once you know your way around, you're never really lost, just rewritten. I returned to my apartment, locked the door, shut the curtains, turned off the lights. But the rain outside didn't sound like rain anymore. It sounded like breathing, like something standing just beyond the window, exhaling slowly. And I knew the house had followed me, not with footsteps, not with shadows, with truths. That night, I didn't dream. I remembered. I was 5 years old, standing in a room with no ceiling, just sky. A little girl sat across from me on the floor, hugging a teddy bear. Her voice was clear, too clear for a child. When you leave this house, you won't be the same, but you won't know that right away. I asked her name. She just said, "You'll remember when it's safe." I woke up gasping. The teddy bear was on my bed, wet, smelling faintly of ash and pine. Didn't own one, I never had. Tucked inside its stitched back, a small, folded map, drawn in pencil, lines like veins, curving and writhing. At the center, the first room, I traced the path. It wasn't a location. It was a sequence of emotions, memories, moments. Each turn was a feeling: guilt, joy, loss, love, and finally, fear. I knew what it meant. I had to go back, but not to a place, to a moment. I closed my eyes, slid the match the girl gave me under my pillow, took a deep breath, and let the house open itself inside my mind. Suddenly, I was in a hallway, familiar, endless, silent, except for a dripping sound behind me. Each door I passed was labeled, not with numbers, with choices. The time you lied, the time you stayed silent, the time you forgot her face. I stopped at one door, no label, just a brass handle, ice cold to the touch. I opened it. Inside was a hospital room, sterile, still. A woman lay on the bed, eyes closed, heart monitor flatlined, and me, 10 years younger, sitting at her side, holding her hand, but saying nothing, not the words I should have said, just silence. That was the moment I changed, when the house first noticed me. The scene shimmered and collapsed like water. The floor buckled. I fell again. This time, I landed in the first room. It wasn't large, no windows, no lights, just a chair. And on it, the girl with the teddy bear. She looked older now, her voice still calm. This is where it began. Not the house, you. I didn't understand. She stood, handed me the teddy bear, and pressed her forehead to mine. You've been dividing yourself, each version locked in a different room, trying to forget pain by splitting it. Suddenly, mirrors appeared on every wall. Each showed a version of me, angry, lonely, terrified, cruel, empty. They began to bang on the glass. "Let us out," they cried. "You locked us here." One shattered the glass and stepped into the room. It was me, but not. Eyes dark, smile broken, and the voice, mine, but layered with others. The house didn't trap you. You built it to survive. I backed away, But the girl stopped me. You can't run. You have to take yourself back. Every version, even the ones you hate. I looked into the eyes of the dark version of me. It didn't attack. It just opened its arms. You left me here, but I protected you. And for the first time, I understood. I stepped forward, embraced him, and felt the weight of every locked door collapse into me. Grief, rage, shame, but also strength, compassion, resilience. The girl smiled. Now you can leave, or stay. It's your house now. When I woke up, the rain had stopped. The teddy bear was gone. So was the map. But under my pillow, the match still lay, now burnt, but never struck. I stood at the window, looked out. No house, no fog, just a quiet morning. But deep inside me, I felt it. Room 1 was unlocked, and the house was still building itself, one truth at a time. Every night at 2:59 a.m., I woke up, not startled, not from a nightmare, just aware. Aware that something was watching, not from my room, from behind the wall. I thought it was a dream at first, but each time I would turn to the clock and the minute hand would pause, stuck between 2:59 and 3 o'clock. That moment didn't tick forward like it should. It held, it waited, and in the silence that followed, I heard it, a click behind the wall, like a lock sliding open. On the 8th night, I got up, bare feet on the floorboards. The rain outside was soft, too soft, like it didn't want to interrupt. I touched the wall where the sound came from, cold, but pulsing. Then, without warning, the wall dissolved, not crumbled, not broken, just melted away, revealing a narrow hallway behind it, lit by a pale, humming light. It shouldn't have been there. The building had no space for this, but it waited, like it had been waiting a long time. I stepped inside. The walls were lined with mirrors, not reflecting me, but versions of the hallway itself. Each reflection showed the hallway longer, darker, twisting in impossible ways. At the end, a sign, Room 314, do not open. But the hallway didn't end at the door. It continued, bending, spiraling. I passed doors, each numbered, each whispering softly. Not words, just intent, like they knew my name. Door 311 smelled like chalk and decay. 312 was cold enough to freeze my breath. 313 was silent. So silent, I couldn't even hear myself breathe. There was no doorknob, only a slot. Like something needed to be inserted, I reached into my pocket. Why? I didn't remember putting anything there, but something was inside. A key made of bone, carved with a spiral. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I inserted it. It clicked. The door groaned open, slow and heavy. And inside, nothing. Just a massive black room. No walls, no ceiling. Just void, and hanging in the center, a cage, suspended by chains from nowhere. Inside it, a creature. At least, that's what I thought it was. Its face was mine, but old, twisted, eyes pitch black, mouth sewn shut. It didn't move, not even when I stepped closer, but the room responded to me. Ripples spread from my feet across the dark floor, like I was standing on still water. The air vibrated with something unspoken. Then I saw the words, carved around the base of the cage. This is the version of you that was never born, the one that never left the hallway. Suddenly, the cage jerked, chains rattled, the creature inside began to thrash. Its sewn mouth strained, like it was trying to scream, but all I heard was laughter, not from it, from behind me. I turned, and the hallway was gone, replaced with a spiral staircase leading down, and standing at the top of the steps was a girl in a hospital gown, hair wet, feet bare, eyes gone. She tilted her head and whispered, "You let the door open. Now it will find the others." Then she fell backwards into the darkness. I ran to the edge, but there was nothing below, just the sound of dripping and the slow unraveling of the walls. Suddenly, everything snapped. I woke up in my bed. Clock said 3:01. Wall was normal. No hallway, no door, just rain on the window. But on the floor, wet footprints leading from the wall to the side of my bed, and tucked under my pillow, a scrap of paper, damp, still warm, on it. Room 314 is next, but the key will cost you a memory. I didn't sleep the next night, or the night after, but 2:59 came anyway, and now, even when I'm awake, I hear the click, feel the air change, like the hallway is waiting again, and the cage inside room 313, it wasn't locked when I left. They say you can't meet the version of yourself that was never meant to exist. But if you do, you have to leave something behind to take their place. And I think that's what it wants. Not to escape, but to trade. It started with a box, left at my doorstep. No return address, just my name, handwritten in black ink. The cardboard was old, soft with moisture, edges crumbling, as if it had been buried and dug up. Inside, only one thing, a photograph, black and white, thick, like it had been printed on something more like cardstock than paper. Dust clung to its surface, refusing to be wiped away. It showed a street I recognized, old part of town, before they built over it, and in the foreground, a group of people facing the camera, blank expressions, but none of them had faces. Not really. Their features were smudged, like someone had tried to erase them with a wet thumb just before the shutter clicked. I felt it immediately. Wrong. Everything about it was wrong. But I kept staring. In the background, just barely visible behind the crowd, was a building, tall, crooked, its windows boarded up, but one was cracked open, and behind the glass, eyes, watching. I nearly dropped the photo, but something about it held me, that sense you get when you're about to remember a nightmare you thought you'd buried. That night, I dreamed of the street, empty this time, no people, just fog, and the sound of shoes tapping on wet cobblestones. I turned in the dream and saw the photo hovering in midair. The people in it were turning their heads toward me. I woke up gasping, 3:03 a.m. The photo sat on my nightstand, where I didn't leave it. I picked it up. The people in it, they'd moved, slightly, only by inches, but they were now all looking in the same direction, to the right, towards something out of frame, and in the cracked window behind them, the eyes were wider. I tried to throw it away, stuffed it into the garbage bin out back, even poured bleach on it. But the next morning, it was back on my kitchen table, dry, clean, and different again. This time, there was a new figure, standing at the far right edge of the frame, dressed in black, hat pulled low, but his smile, it wasn't smudged like the others. It was crystal clear, wide, too wide. I searched online for anything about the location, found an old city planning archive. The street had been demolished in 1971 to make way for a new bridge, but one article caught my eye. 6 found dead in boarding house fire, unidentified man among them. Police unable to determine cause. Locals claim the house was haunted. One survivor said the fire began in the basement, but that the man in the hat had locked the door. It was the same building, same window. I scanned the photo, uploaded it, posted it in a local history group. Someone messaged me within minutes. Take it down. If the man sees you, he finds you. He moves closer each time you look. Blocked me immediately after. My heart pounded. I checked the photo again. The man in the hat, he was no longer at the edge. He was in the middle, smiling, directly at the camera, and the others, their faces were gone completely now, erased, even their clothes blurred into shadows. Except for one at the far left, whose face looked exactly like mine. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't, but I did check the photo again. He'd moved again, closer. I measured the space between his shoes and the border of the image. It shrank by centimeters every hour. By morning, he'd stepped halfway out of the background, and the buildings behind him had begun to fade, as if the photo was letting him leave. I called a friend, Lucy. She believed in this stuff, said she knew someone who could help. An old woman, lived 2 towns over, called herself a memory weaver. We drove through the rain, photos sealed in a box, duct taped 6 times over. The old woman didn't open it, just sat me down and said, "Photos are impressions, but this isn't a photo. It's a door, and you've been looking through it too long." She burned sage, poured salt in a circle around us, then opened the box and screamed. She held her chest, breathing heavy, then whispered, "He's not trapped in there anymore." I looked. The photo was completely blank, just an image of an empty street. No people, no building, no man in the hat. But behind me, I felt breath, warm, just inches from my neck. I spun, nothing. The room was dim, shadows flickered, and then the photo, still sitting on the table, smiled. No faces, no bodies, just a grin, carved into the paper, like it had been pressed in with something sharp. We destroyed it, ripped it, burned the pieces, buried the ashes with salt and iron. But that night, when I closed my bathroom mirror, he was behind me, hat, smile, and a camera in hand. He clicked the shutter, flash of light, and I vanished. No one remembers me now, not even Lucy. But somewhere, there's a new photograph on someone's doorstep, with their name written in ink, and in the far corner of the frame, a man with a hat, smiling, holding a picture of you. It sounded easy, $200 a night, for 5 nights. All I had to do was sleep. I'd seen the ad online. Sleep study volunteers needed. No medical procedures, just rest. I applied, got accepted the next day. They told me to bring pajamas and a toothbrush. That was it. No background checks, no waiver. It was odd, sure, but I was broke and tired. Funny thing is, I didn't really sleep the first night, but something else did. The facility looked like an old office building, flickering lights, beige walls, no windows, fluorescent hum, even in the hallways. A woman met me at the front, white coat, no name tag. She spoke quietly, like someone else might be listening. You'll be in room 4C, lights out at 10. Try not to resist sleep. Odd phrasing, I thought. Try not to resist? The room was clean. Too clean. Smelled like rubbing alcohol and dust. No clock, no phone. Just a twin bed with white sheets and a camera in the corner. They told me it was for observation only. I lay down, staring at the ceiling. 10 minutes in, I heard it. Breathing. Not mine, not from the hallway. Right next to the bed. But when I turned, nothing. I told the nurse the next morning. She smiled like it was expected. First night, your mind is adjusting to the study, that's all. I asked if anyone else was in the room. No, she said. But someone might have been passing through. Passing through? I should have left then. But the second night came, and with it, the dream. I was standing in a hospital corridor, dim, wet floors, bare feet slapping against tile. Down the hall was a door. Behind it, whispering, voices I recognized, but couldn't name. I opened the door, and inside was me, lying in the bed, wires attached to my chest, eyes wide open, and something else, floating above me. It looked like smoke, but thicker. It pulsed, like a jellyfish made of shadow. As I watched, it lowered itself into me. I woke up gasping, cold sweat. My sheets were damp. The door to my room was open a crack, and I was sure I'd locked it. By the third night, things changed. The dream didn't wait for me to fall asleep. It hit the moment my eyes closed. This time, I wasn't in the corridor. I was in a pit, deep, walls made of skin, soft, pulsing, breathing. Above me, I saw eyes, rows of them, blinking, watching, and then I felt hands, hundreds of them, touching my face, opening my mouth, pulling at my thoughts like they were physical things, feeding. I woke up screaming. The nurse was already standing beside the bed. You're doing well, she said. The subject inside you is responding. I demanded answers. She just placed a hand on my forehead and whispered, Don't worry, it's almost finished digesting. I tried to leave, ran to the front door, but it was gone. No handles, no seams, just smooth white wall. The windows, fake. Outside them, just darkness, thick, not night, more like the absence of the world. On the fourth night, they strapped me down, didn't even try to pretend anymore. A man with hollow eyes stood beside me. He held a clipboard, but never wrote anything. He leaned down, nose inches from mine, and whispered, You are fertile ground. It has taken root. Soon you'll bloom. Then they injected something, and everything went black. This dream was different. I wasn't me anymore. I was looking through someone else's eyes, a woman running down a corridor. I could feel her heart pounding, her thoughts screaming. It followed me out. It followed me. Then she looked into a mirror and saw my face. I don't remember waking up, but I remember the voice, calm, constant, in my head. Don't resist. We only hunger for what you leave behind. You won't miss it. Last night was the 5th. They didn't come in. They didn't feed me. Just turned off the lights, locked the door, and left me in silence. No camera, no nurse, only the hum of the ceiling light and the voice in my head, now louder. This dream was a memory, but not mine. I saw a planet floating in darkness, ancient, hollow, its surface cracked like dried blood, a civilization long dead, not from war, not from disease, but from waking something up, something that fed on dreams. It had no name, only instinct, to slip into sleeping minds, to plant itself and grow. I was one of many, thousands of volunteers across the country, all dreaming the same shape, all feeding the same thing. Our thoughts were tunnels, passageways, and it was almost here, not in thought, but in form. I'm not asleep anymore. I haven't been for hours, but I can still see it, behind my eyelids, in the corners of the room, in my own reflection. It hums when I breathe, moves when I blink. I think I'm not dreaming anymore, but it is. And it's dreaming of you. There's something sacred about hiking alone. Just you, the wind, the trees, and the space between your thoughts. I'd done this trail before, twice, but this time felt different from the start. Colder. Even though it was June, even the birds were quiet. The sign at the trailhead looked freshly painted, which was strange. Last time I came through, it had been nearly illegible, but it read the same. Black Hollow Trail, 6.4 miles. About halfway in is an old fire lookout tower. That was my goal for the day, just a little solo recharge. But around mile 3, I noticed something wrong. The path split. It never had before. To the right was the usual trail, well-worn, soft earth and marked trees. To the left, a path I swear hadn't been there before, overgrown, moss climbing the bark, but still walkable. There was a sign nailed to a nearby tree, old wood, letters carved instead of painted. It read, Ranger Station, 1.2 me. I'd never heard of one out here. Curious, I took the detour. The trail narrowed fast. Twigs cracked underfoot. No footprints but mine. Even the air felt thicker, harder to breathe, but not from the climb. Around the final bend, I found it, the station, or what was left of it. It was a small wooden building, half rotted, half buried in ivy. The windows were busted, roof collapsed in the middle, but the front door was somehow intact. Hinged perfectly, like it had just been oiled, there was a faded placard beside the entrance. Black Hollow Lookout, Eston 1952. Underneath, scratched into the metal, decommissioned 1982. I turned to leave. That's when I heard the voice. Help me. It was faint, female, coming from inside the building. I froze. Then it came again. Please, I'm still here. I stepped closer, pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then, don't let it find me. I should have left. I really should have turned around and walked back. But I opened the door. It didn't creak, didn't groan, just slid open, like it was waiting for me. Inside, dust, mildew, and broken furniture. But the floor was untouched. No raccoon tracks, no leaves, just clean wooden boards. And right there, in the center of the room, a radio, old school, big knobs, cracked speaker cloth, but the red light was on. I stared at it. Then it hissed, and a voice came through. Ranger Torres, Black Hollow Station, please respond. Static. Then again, This is Torres. If anyone can hear me, I'm stuck at the old station. Something's wrong. Time doesn't feel right. I think I'm dead. I think... The transmission cut off. My skin went cold, because Torres was the name of the ranger who died in a fire out here 40 years ago. I backed away from the radio. It crackled again. Another voice this time. Low, male, dry. You heard it. Now you're marked. I turned and ran. Didn't care about the trail. Just tore through the woods like my soul was on fire. Branches slapped my face. Roots grabbed my ankles, but I kept moving until I hit the clearing and the tower came into view. The fire lookout stood tall and silent, like it had always been, but something was off. I checked my phone. It had power again. Weird. The time read 11:04 a.m., except it should have been well past 3. And the date? October 17th. I had started my hike on June 3rd. I rushed down the mountain, ignoring the trails. Made it to my car, breathless and scratched up. Turned the engine, checked the dashboard. Radio was on, and through the speakers, barely audible, it sees through the trees. It waits where time bends. If you find the station, you never really leave. That night, I searched the internet. Black Hollow Ranger Station never existed. No records, no mentions, but I did find something else. A Reddit post from 2018 titled, "Anyone heard of the Black Hollow Detour?" In it, a man described the same trail, same path that didn't used to be there, same voice, same radio. He ended the post with, "I hear whispers when I sleep now. Something followed me back, and it says my body died in 1982, but my soul didn't get the memo." The comments were locked. The user deleted, but their profile picture was still visible. It was the station, the exact one I'd seen, only in this photo. The door was wide open, and inside, a person, standing still, looking out, wearing my clothes. The house came to me in a will I didn't expect. Grandfather died in his sleep. Peaceful, they said, which didn't match the look on his face when I found him. His mouth had been open like he was screaming, eyes wide, glassy, frozen on the ceiling. I hadn't seen him in over 15 years. But he'd left me everything, a 2-story Victorian in upstate New York. I didn't remember much about it, just that it always felt cold, even in summer, and that we weren't allowed in the attic. The first 2 days after moving in were quiet. I took time off work, started cleaning out old furniture, tried not to overthink the way the floors creaked, even when I was sitting still. But it was on the 3rd day I found the key. It was inside a kitchen drawer labeled fuses. Beneath the light bulbs and batteries, taped to the bottom, a rusted key with a tiny label tied in string. One word, attic. The door was in the upstairs hallway, near the old nursery. I stood there for a long time before I opened it. Something about that hallway always made me uneasy, like the shadows leaned toward you just a little too much. The lock clicked easily, too easily, like it had been used recently. I pulled the chain, and the stairs creaked down. Up I went, flashlight in hand. The smell hit me first. Dust, wood rot, and something else, something wet. The attic was cluttered but organized. Stacks of old trunks, shelves of books. one small rocking chair in the far corner that I avoided making eye contact with. But what really drew me was the table. It was set in the middle of the room, like someone had used it recently. A lamp, a cassette player, and a wooden crate filled with tapes, dozens of them, each one labeled in black marker with a name and a date. I picked one up at random. Clara Meadows, March 4th, 1968. Another, Joel Winthrop, November 12th, 1981. None of the names meant anything to me until I got to the bottom of the box. That's where I found it. Mila Green, October 9th, 2025. Green was my last name. Mila? That's the name my wife and I picked out for the baby she was still 3 months pregnant with. My hands were shaking when I put the tape into the player. I pressed play. The sound of static, then a child's voice. It was unmistakable. She was singing, softly, the way children sing to themselves when they don't know anyone's listening. Then a voice broke in, low, adult, male, Mila Green, day 12, subject responding well, memories intact, awareness delayed, good. Then silence, and a final whisper, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. Don't let them take her back. I yanked the tape out. My breath was shallow. I couldn't understand what I had just heard. Had someone recorded the future? Was this some prank? But the voice, it sounded like her, like the little girl I hadn't even met yet. I checked every tape in the box. Every single one had a date in the past, except for one more. Elena Green, May 23rd, 2047. Elena, that was my wife's name. She'd be 58. I didn't play that one, couldn't. Instead, I called my mother. I asked her about grandfather, his job, his past, what he did before retirement. She went quiet for a long time, then said, "Your grandfather was a sound engineer for the government, Project Echo, all classified. He never talked about it, but after Grandma died, he said things, strange things." Like what? He said sounds could carry memory, that voices leave an imprint like fingerprints on time itself, and that if you listened just right, you could hear people who weren't born yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept hearing the cassette turn in my head, kept hearing Mila's voice. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed I was back in the attic. But this time, it was different. Clean, lit by a soft orange glow. And at the table sat a man, dressed in gray, face blurred like smoke. He looked up at me and said, "You've heard her now. That means she can be found." I asked what he meant. He replied, "We only need the voice. The body finds its way eventually." I woke up in a cold sweat, and the worst part, the cassette player had been moved. It now sat beside my bed, still on, still spinning, even though there was no tape inside. 3 days later, I got a call from the obstetrician. There was a change in the scans, something with the baby's brain activity. The doctor said, "It's nothing bad, just unusual. Your baby's showing signs of auditory recognition, as if she's been exposed to language far earlier than normal." I asked what that meant. She said, "It's like she already knows your voice, but also someone else's." I went back into the attic today. The crate of tapes is gone. All that's left is a single new one on the table. No label, no date. I haven't pressed play, not yet, but I know it's me, my voice, saying things I haven't said yet, to people I haven't met yet. And when I finally play it, I don't think I'll be able to forget what I hear, because sound doesn't lie, and some echoes never die. People think museums are dead quiet at night. Still, peaceful, but I've worked enough night shifts to know better. They breathe. The halls exhale dust. Floorboards settle with memory, and the shadows always feel a few seconds slower than your steps. I worked security at the Tanner Museum of Human History. Not famous, not flashy, but big enough to keep a staff of 3 on the night shift. 2 patrolled outside. I was inside, alone, except for the hallway. The first time I noticed it, I thought I was overtired. I'd done a double shift, was doing rounds near the anthropology wing around 2 o'clock a.m. That hallway wasn't supposed to be there. It was carved into the side of the corridor between ancient cultures and the Evolution Theater. Stone arch, no sign above the door, no emergency lights, just blackness stretching back, deeper than the blueprints allowed. I radioed my supervisor, no response. I stood at the threshold, tried shining my flashlight inside. It didn't help. The beam got swallowed by the dark, like the hallway was drinking the light. I left it alone that night, went back the next day during daylight hours. Same hallway, gone. Smooth wall where the arch had been. I brought it up with Martin, our daytime supervisor. He laughed and said, "Probably the museum just getting to your head. They say the place was built over an old asylum. The foundation still has rooms we can't access." Funny thing to joke about, but that night I checked again and the hallway was back. 2:03 a.m. on the dot. By the third night, curiosity beat fear. I stepped inside. It felt colder, heavier, like the air was thicker in there, like it had weight. The hallway didn't go straight. It twisted like a corkscrew. Walls weren't painted, just rough stone, etched with carvings that looked like fingerprints smudged into rock. No windows, no doors, except at the very end. One small wooden door, barely 5 feet tall. I reached for the handle. It turned easily. Inside was an exhibit room, but nothing like upstairs. The display cases were made of old, pitted glass, labels typed on yellowed parchment, and what they held didn't belong anywhere in human history. I saw a jar of teeth, each with a tiny eye set in the root, a cloak stitched from what looked like human skin, but scaled like a fish, a skeleton that walked in a slow loop inside its case, with no muscles or strings attached. There was no noise, but every time I looked away, the displays were slightly different. The teeth jar had fewer eyes. The cloak was hanging lower. The skeleton had turned to face me. I backed out, closed the door, ran the hallway, checked the time, 2:06 a.m., and just like that, the hallway was gone. I told no one, but I started documenting it. Every night I checked, always appeared at exactly 2:03, always vanished at 2:06, never a second longer. I kept a notebook. I even tried taking photos inside, but the images came back blank, like the hallway didn't exist on any real frequency. One night I brought a coworker, Miguel. I told him I found an old maintenance passage. We waited. 203. The hallway appeared, but Miguel didn't see it. He looked right at it, said, "What hallway?" I guided his hand to the arch. He touched the wall, solid. To him, it wasn't there. I stood inside it. He just blinked and said, "You're walking into the wall." From the inside, I could still see him, but he couldn't see me. After that, I went in alone again, and things were different. The room at the end now had 2 doors. One of them had my name carved into it, burned into the wood like it had been waiting. The display cases were gone. In their place, a desk with my security reports on it. Reports I hadn't written yet. A photo of me sleeping in the break room, dated 3 nights from now. A mirror with no reflection, only static. I heard footsteps behind me, spun around, nothing, turned back. The mirror now showed me, but older, 50, 60, eyes hollow, mouth stitched shut with black thread. I ran, but I could still hear my own footsteps following me. Even after I stopped, I never went back in, but the hallway never stopped showing up. Last week, the museum installed new cameras in the anthropology wing. They wanted full surveillance. That night, I watched the feed at 2:03 a.m. The hallway appeared. I watched in real time as someone walked out of it. Not me, not anyone on staff. He was tall, wearing my exact uniform, but his face was blurry, like bad footage. He walked through the exhibit halls, did a complete round, then looked directly into the nearest camera and smiled. Next morning, when we reviewed the footage, it was gone, corrupted. But my notebook, a new entry was scribbled inside. I hadn't written it. You've seen it now. That means it can follow. Next time, it won't need the hallway. I quit last night, handed in my badge, but when I got home, there was a door in my hallway. Small, wooden, no knob. The time on the stove said 2:03 a.m. I don't think it needs the museum anymore. I think it just needs me. After Paul died, I didn't want comfort. I didn't want casseroles. I didn't want people knocking at the door, giving me that look, like I might shatter if they spoke too loudly. I wanted quiet, so I bought a farmhouse 3 towns over. No neighbors, no noise, just wind through the fields and trees that whispered like old secrets. It was perfect, until the 3rd night. I was in the bedroom, lights off, drifting somewhere between sleep and memory. And then, I heard Paul's voice, muffled, low, coming from inside the wall next to the bed. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard it again, clearer. Clara, my name, and then again, closer. Clara, you're not alone. I sat up, listened, nothing. No wind, no creaking, just that awful silence that only exists when something is trying not to be heard. I pressed my ear to the wall, and there it was again. Paul, whispering things he'd never said when he was alive. I see you through the eyes of the house. He's still here, Clara. He never left. Open the wall. I didn't sleep that night, didn't move, just sat there with the lamp on, staring at the place where his voice came through. In the morning, I tried to tell myself it was grief, auditory hallucinations. My therapist would have called it transitional echoing, the mind's way of letting go. But on night 4, he spoke again. This time, he said, "You're sleeping in the wrong room." I whispered, "Paul?" And the voice changed. For a moment, it wasn't his. It was deeper, wrong, almost amused. He's not here anymore. The next day, I inspected the wall. It was older than the rest. The paneling didn't match the rest of the room. Warmer wood, different grain. I tapped it, hollow. Something was behind it. I found a crowbar in the shed and pulled the panel loose. Behind it was a cavity. Dark, dust-choked, about the size of a small crawl space. And inside, a chair. Old, rotting, with leather straps on the arms and legs. And on the wall above, it scratched over and over in gouged letters, "Let me out." I didn't know what to do. I backed away, closed it up again, tried to pretend it wasn't real. But that night, he spoke again, louder, clearer. He said things no one else could know. "Remember the lake when we were 16 and you almost drowned? You told me not to let go. I didn't. I never will. I'm closer than you think." I ran out of the house, drove to the nearest motel, slept with the TV on, but when I got back the next morning, the bedroom window was open and scratched into the floorboards, right below the bed. "Welcome home." I called the realtor. She went quiet when I mentioned the crawl space, said the house used to be part of a psychiatric farm decades ago. Patients who weren't manageable were sometimes locked in reflection chambers, alone, for weeks. She didn't say much more, but before hanging up, she added, "If you start hearing them, don't answer. That's how they get out." Too late. Last night, I heard multiple voices, some whispering, some crying, one laughing, but Paul's voice was gone. In his place, something else had taken root, something that knew how to sound like him. And then it said, "You already opened the wall. That's all we needed." I tried sealing it with nails, then with bricks, then with salt and prayers, and things I found on forums full of people who'd seen things like this before. Nothing worked, because now they're not just in the wall, they're in the house. Every time I move a mirror, their reflections linger half a second too long. Every door I lock unlocks itself by morning, and every time I close my eyes, I hear breathing right next to me, warm, damp, and not mine. Tonight, I packed my things. I'm going to leave, but I'm afraid the house won't let me. It whispered something new just now, from the space behind the fireplace. "If you leave, we follow." And I believe it, because just now, I looked in the mirror by the front door, and Paul is standing behind me, smiling, but his eyes are gone, and he has no mouth, just skin stretched over where it used to be, stitched tight. I haven't looked away, because I'm afraid. If I blink, he'll be in front of me. We're trained not to panic. That's Rule 1 in Ranger School. No matter what you find in the woods, body, bear, fire, or something you don't have a name for, stay calm. Radio it in. Stay by the book. But that night, deep inside the northern boundary of Ridgewood National Forest, I found something that had no page in any book. Not one I've read. It started with a 911 ping. Hiker reported hearing someone calling for help off Trail 17. Said the voice was weak. Male. Kept repeating the same words over and over. "Still here, still here." I hiked out just before dusk, solo. About 3 miles in, the trail split. I followed the sound, faint, almost like an echo, but definitely human. After another 40 minutes, I came to a clearing. There was a lean-to shelter, made from old timber and vines, campfire long dead, but the stones were warm. And sitting there, staring into the trees, was a man. Thin, gray hair to his shoulders, his face hollow, like it had been carved from old wood. He looked at me and whispered. I told them I wasn't dead. I radioed dispatch, but the signal was gone. No static, no distortion, just gone. I approached him slowly, told him I was a ranger, asked if he was hurt. He nodded once, then said, "The forest keeps you, if it likes you." I thought he was senile, maybe a lost hermit out here too long. Then I asked his name. He said, "Richard Grady." That stopped me cold, because that name was carved into the memorial at the ranger station. Richard Grady disappeared in 1986. He was 28, went hiking on Trail 17, never came back. They searched for weeks, found only his backpack and a blood-soaked jacket, declared dead in 87. I looked at the man again, same face, a little older, but not by much, not 40 years older. He should have been in his 60s, but he looked maybe 35, like he'd aged a few years, and then just stopped. I sat beside him, unsettled. He didn't move, just kept staring into the dark trees, eyes wide. "It feeds on time," he said. "Takes it from you, gives it to something else. That's why the animals here don't run, why the trees grow backwards." I started to reply, but he put a hand on my arm. His skin was cold, not outdoors cold, wrong cold, like a freezer that hadn't been opened in years. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "It's awake now." The shadows moved. I swear they moved. Not like wind or light tricks. They moved on their own, twisting, sliding between trees, like something waiting. The birds had gone silent, even the bugs. No crunch of leaves, no rustle, no air, just a living stillness that wrapped around me like a net. I told Richard we needed to leave, tried pulling him up, but he shook his head. "You can't leave at night. That's when it counts you." I didn't understand until I turned around and saw footprints, mine, leading up to the camp, but also leading away. Another set, same boots, same pattern, but there were 3 extra steps into the woods, steps I hadn't taken. Richard stood up, looked me in the eyes and said, "You'll think you make it out. You'll think you escape, but the forest keeps a copy." Then he stepped back into the shadows and disappeared, like he'd melted into the trees. I ran, didn't care about trails or compasses or protocol, just ran. Branches clawed at me. The air felt wet, like I was running through breath instead of fog, and behind me the trees whispered, over and over, "Still here, still here, still here." I burst out onto the trail just before sunrise, collapsed, gasped, didn't stop shaking for hours. They found me in the ranger station parking lot that afternoon. I told them what I saw. They said no footprints matched mine, no campfire, no lean-to, no Richard Grady, but they ran the prints I got from his old ID photo against mine. And something matched, not just fingerprints, DNA, a partial strand, too incomplete to be from me, but close, too close. I quit the next day, packed, moved out of state, but I can still hear the forest sometimes, in dreams, in static on radios, in dead spots of phone calls where the line goes silent, and I swear someone says, "Still here." A few weeks ago, I woke up in my apartment and found muddy footprints on the balcony. Same boots, same pattern, 3 extra steps. Heading in. They say babies can see things we can't. Spirits, auras, whatever lives in the veil between sleep and awake. I used to think that was just something people said to scare new moms. Until I had Mason, until the night he started screaming at 3:12 a.m. every night, at exactly the same time. At first, I chalked it up to a sleep regression. He was 5 months old, teething, maybe. I'd check the monitor, go in, rock him a little, hum a song. But he'd just stare, not at me. At the ceiling, more specifically, the vent in the top corner of his room. His eyes wide, terrified, tiny fists clenched like he was bracing for something. Not just crying, screaming like he was being hunted. On the 4th night, I stayed in the room with him, sat in the rocker, and waited. 1:45 a.m., 2:15 a.m., 2:45. Right before 3:12, the baby monitor cut out. Just static. Mason sat up in his crib, not rolling over like a baby, but straight up, almost unnatural. He looked right at the vent and whispered something. I swear he whispered. I leaned closer. He said, "Eyes." I turned toward the vent. At first I saw nothing, just slats, shadows, but then a glint like glass or a reflection. Then 2 round shapes low in the duct. I thought they were spiders until they blinked. I grabbed Mason and ran, called my brother, a contractor, told him to bring his tools and check the ducts. He showed up the next morning, climbed up into the attic. After 20 minutes, he came down pale and sweating. "There's something up there," he said, "but it's not an animal." He found a nest of things, broken pacifiers, buttons, a baby sock, not Mason's, scratches all along the inside of the duct near Mason's room, and a small, matted blanket. It had a name embroidered on it. Caleb. I searched every missing child report in the county. There was a boy named Caleb Myers, went missing 2 years ago, 8 months old, disappeared from his crib. No forced entry, no sign of struggle, just gone. And the vent in his room, same layout, same model. That night, I put a camera in the vent, not a baby monitor, a motion-triggered trail cam with night vision, set it up, left Mason sleeping in my room. At 3:12 a.m., the camera pinged and recorded 6 seconds of footage. I still haven't shown it to anyone because I don't want them to think I'm insane. I don't want them to know what's above us, but I'll describe it. The footage begins in total darkness. Then 2 eyes appear, wide, unblinking, not animal, not human. Something wet moves behind the vent slats. It shifts closer, then a hand reaches through, small, bone thin, with too many knuckles. The fingers tap the inside of the vent, softly, like it's trying to lull the baby to sleep. Then it whispers, "Shh, baby's mine, now." I took the camera and smashed it, moved Mason into my room permanently, had the ducts sealed, bolted shut, even though part of me knew it wouldn't help, because the next night, even without the vent. At exactly 3:12 a.m., Mason sat up in bed, looked at the ceiling, and smiled. I haven't slept since. I watch him now every night, and every night his lips move at 3:12, silent, mouthing the same word, eyes. Last night, he said something different, something that made my blood run cold. He wants a new mommy. And then he looked at me. I'm not sure if Mason's still my baby, or if something else came down through that vent one night and took his place. But I know this, tonight at 3:12 a.m., I'm not going to be here. I moved into my first apartment last fall. Top floor, older building, creaky pipes, yellowed walls, the kind of place that always smells faintly of wood and rain. The bedroom had one bare wall, and I figured I'd find something secondhand to hang there. A mirror, maybe. Something tall, old school charm. That's how I found the mirror, tenned at a thrift store on the edge of town. Dusty, iron frame shaped like thorned vines, the kind of thing you'd expect in a haunted castle. It had no price tag. When I asked, the old woman behind the counter just said, "It's better if you don't take it home." I thought she was joking. I hung it up that evening, centered on the bedroom wall across from my bed. For the first couple of nights, I didn't even look at it much. But on the third night, something strange happened. I was brushing my teeth when I caught my reflection yawning, a full second too late. Not a glitch, not a trick of the light. It was like my reflection had to think about it before copying me. I laughed it off, sleep-deprived probably. Long work hours, new place, lots on my mind. But the next night, I noticed something else. When I sat on the edge of the bed and bent down to tie my shoes, my reflection didn't move at all. It just sat upright, staring at me, expressionless. I froze, looked up slowly, and then it snapped back into place, mimicking my movements perfectly. But I know what I saw. I stopped using that mirror, draped a towel over it, moved it into the closet. But that didn't help, because one night I woke to the sound of something tapping, a slow, soft tick, tick, tick. I followed the sound to the closet. The door was cracked open, and the towel on the floor. The mirror leaned against the back wall, and in the reflection, I saw my bedroom, but it was wrong. There was no me in the bed. Instead, the bed was empty, the room darker, but the mirror, the one inside the reflection, was glowing faintly, and in that reflection, someone else stood at the edge of the bed. Not me, not anyone I know. He looked like me, but his posture was too stiff, and his eyes, they were staring directly at the real me. I slammed the closet door shut, took the mirror down to the curb the next morning, left a note that said, "Free." When I came back from work, it was gone. I thought that was the end of it, but the next night, it was back, leaning against the bedroom wall like it had never left. Same iron frame, same smudged glass. Only now, my reflection looked even less like me. He was thinner, paler, lips curled into a grin that I wasn't making, and he didn't blink when I did. I tried to destroy it, grabbed a hammer and swung, but the moment the hammer hit the glass, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like I was being crushed from the inside. I dropped the hammer. The reflection tilted its head, mocking me, like it knew I was trapped. Now, I keep the mirror covered with a thick black sheet, but even then, sometimes I hear it. The tapping, the soft whisper I can't quite make out. And once, just once, I saw movement beneath the sheet, like someone pressing their face against it from the inside. Last week I installed cameras, just one in the bedroom, angled toward the mirror, motion triggered. I told myself it was for peace of mind. This morning I checked the footage. There was only one clip, time-stamped 3:03 a.m. The video shows me asleep in bed. Then, the mirror sheet slowly slides off. The reflection stands up, stays out of the frame, not toward the mirror, toward the camera. The footage ends with a glitch, just static, but the last frame, if you pause it just right, you can see a hand pressed against the lens. It's not mine. Don't sleep in that room anymore. I've moved my bed into the living room, but even now, some mornings I wake up and find the mirror leaning against the wall across from me, waiting. I think whatever was in there is trying to take my place, and one day I'm going to wake up and realize I'm not the one on this side of the glass anymore. I've had Max, my golden retriever, for 8 years. He's gentle, loyal, a bit of a coward, but that's part of his charm. He never growls, never bites, and he only barks when someone's at the door. So it threw me off when, one night around 2 a.m., I woke up to him barking, not at a sound, not at the window, but at the corner of the living room, just standing there, hackles raised, growling. There was nothing there. I called his name. He didn't budge, didn't even glance at me. His eyes stayed locked onto the corner, the one beside the old bookshelf, where two walls meet in perfect darkness. Eventually, I had to coax him back into the bedroom with treats. I figured maybe a raccoon or squirrel had gotten onto the roof, and he heard it. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same corner, same frozen, trembling stare. By the fourth night, it became routine. 1:58 a.m., Max would jump out of bed. 2 o'clock a.m., barking, low growling, tail tucked, and always at that corner. I started sleeping with the light on. On the 5th night, I set my phone on the coffee table and hit record, just to see what he was seeing. I left it running, camera facing the corner. I didn't watch the footage right away. Frankly, I forgot until I found my phone the next afternoon with the battery dead. That night, Max refused to enter the living room at all. He whimpered at the doorway, tail between his legs. He's never done that before. Something had changed. I charged my phone, opened the video. For the first 2 hours, nothing. Just grainy night vision. At 1:59 a.m., Max walked into frame. He barked at the corner as expected. Then, something happened. At exactly 2:01 a.m., the shadow in the corner shifted. At first, I thought it was compression or a trick of the light, but then I saw it again. A shape, a figure stepped forward, slowly, out of the corner. It didn't walk, it just glided, thin arms, no face. It cast no shadow of its own. It stood right behind Max, and he didn't move. He just froze, ears flat, chest heaving. And then the figure bent down and whispered into his ear. I slammed my laptop shut. I didn't want to watch more, but curiosity clawed at me, so I played the video again, this time with the volume maxed out. Right at 2:02 a.m., there it was. A voice, breathy, inhuman, but clear. He can't save you. That night, I didn't sleep. Max wouldn't leave my side. Every time I looked toward that corner, I felt it, like someone was standing just beyond what I could see. Watching, waiting. The next morning, I moved the bookshelf. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was something behind it. But there was nothing, except a handprint, small, smudged, pressed against the wall about 4 feet off the ground. Too high to be a child's, too small to be mine. I painted over it, tried to forget, but the following night, at 2:00 a.m., Max started barking again, louder this time, more frantic. I ran into the living room, and there he was, staring not at the corner, but at me, his teeth bared, eyes wide, and behind him, the shadow was back. Only now I could see it too, just for a moment, but enough. It stood in the doorway, tall, thin, head tilted, and as I watched, it raised one hand and pointed right at me. I blacked out. When I woke up, it was morning. Max lay beside me, shaking. My phone was open to the voice recorder app. A new file had been saved at exactly 2:02 a.m. I played it, just static at first. Then the voice. You saw me. Now you're mine. I moved out the next day. New apartment, new city, fresh start. But some nights, Max still wakes me at 2:00 a.m. sharp. He stares into the corner of whatever room we're in and whimpers. And once, just once, I saw his reflection in the window, and it smiled at me. I go to an old university, the kind with ivy on the bricks, drafty stairwells, and stories that feel more like legends than rumors. They told us not to use the basement. No reason, just a warning, slipped into casual conversation by the RA during orientation. Stay out of the sub-basement, yeah? Elevator down there hasn't worked in years. I didn't think much of it at the time, but curiosity, as always, is louder than warnings. The laundry room was down there, and one night, late, I forgot to bring quarters and had to go back. On the way, I took a wrong turn and ended up in the back hallway of the basement. Everything was dim, flickering, dust coating the light fixtures. I saw it at the end of the hall, tucked behind a heavy "Do Not Enter" sign bolted to a chain. The elevator, old, rusty, an iron sliding grate in front instead of doors. It was clearly sealed, but above it, the button panel still flickered weakly with power, and one button glowed. B3. That was weird. Our dorm only had 2 basement levels. B1 was laundry. B2 was storage. There was no B3. No one ever mentioned a 3rd level, but the button glowed like it was waiting. I reached through the broken part of the gate, pressed it. The light turned red, and the elevator shuddered. I backed up. The walls vibrated, and then it opened. A slow grind of metal, like the building was groaning. Inside was total darkness. Not just unlit, dark. A kind of black that felt heavy, like it swallowed the air. The elevator floor was intact. The inside looked newer than the exterior. Polished black tile, unmarked brass rails. It smelled like bleach and something else. Copper, like old blood. I should have walked away. I really should have. But I stepped inside. The second I crossed the threshold, the doors slammed shut behind me. No button panel, just B3, still glowing red. I was locked in. The elevator dropped. No sound. Just a sick lurch like falling through space. It didn't stop at B1, didn't stop at B2. It kept going and going, and then it stopped. With a sound like bones breaking under pressure, the doors opened. It was pitch black, but not empty. There was a hallway ahead, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb about 30 feet down. The air was wrong, thick, moldy, like rot that had soaked into the concrete. I heard something breathing, not loud, but definitely not mine. It came from the shadows, and the deeper I stared, the more I thought I saw shapes moving, not walking, crawling. I turned around, started jamming the B3 button. Nothing. I slapped the walls, yelled, no response. But from the hallway, I heard something new. Come see. The voice was flat, mechanical, but behind it, I could hear something wet in the pronunciation, like the words were being chewed as they were spoken. I stayed in that elevator for what felt like hours, afraid to move, afraid to breathe too loud. But eventually, the lights above me blinked and the elevator rose, fast. When it stopped and the doors opened, I was back in the normal basement hallway. B1, bright fluorescent lights, silence. I stepped out, looked back. The elevator was gone. No shaft, no button, just a brick wall. I thought maybe I hallucinated the whole thing. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe the pressure of midterms got to me. Until I got back to my room and opened my laundry bag. All my clothes were soaked, but not with water. Blood, dried, flaking, crusted at the seams. And in the middle of my white t-shirt was a handprint, child-sized, blackened, burned into the fabric like ash. I never went back to the basement, started doing my laundry off campus. But the nightmares never stopped. They always begin the same. I'm standing in the hallway. The B3 button glows. I hear the voice, come see. And when I do, there's a mirror in the hallway, and I realize it's not my reflection anymore. It's me in the elevator, watching myself walk away.